Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call to order the public hearing on ordinance number 2. Changing the elections code regarding filing as a candidate for election. So, is there anyone here who has a comment on that? We'll have regular public comments on anything else.
Oh, we need a microphone, maybe not for Phil.
Please sign in on the sheet which is on the podium and then state your name and address. And please speak into the microphone so everyone can hear.
Good evening. My name is Bill Gross, 1301 13th Street. Happy holidays, everyone. This agenda item number 1 under our whole business. I did check with the state, and according to the state's guidelines, even with a past felony, as long as it's expunged and or pardoned by the governor, you're allowed to run for an office. So basically, I implore council, when you address ordinance 552, that you add those words in at the end, basically that if a candidate's record has been expunged or receives a pardon from the governor, that they will be permitted to run for an office. I feel that is fair. Now, moving on, if this ordinance is passed, where it basically includes that now potential candidates may file their completed candidates declarations and forms in person or via electronic means, then our current mayor, Leary, comes in direct violation to that new ordinance. And I also will seek legal action to have that happen. So I would suggest you either table this resolution or seek counsel before you pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. And are there any other comments?
But I would start by saying I greatly appreciate the intent of the ordinance and most of the language. I like the clarity and fully support the inclusion of electronic filing options and appreciate council taking steps to add clarity to our code documents. I have a couple concerns. The first regards the age requirement, which I believe should be 18 for a council person at large, and 21 or maybe 25 for council president and mayor only. Many other localities have benefited from the perspectives of young adults. Complete exclusion is also tantamount to discrimination. Even major cities like Philadelphia have some elected offices that are attainable to all adults. Some of the founders whose stories we revere in this town were barely out of their teens when they created the nation. The idea that we trust 18-year-olds to enter military service, which is laden with life and death choices, but not to represent their fellow citizens, is also an absurd contradiction. Final point on the age requirement. In practical terms, as demonstrated by their current service on the boards of several local institutions, I know a few of the people who I would happily vote for city council. On the question of application deficiencies, I'd ask for clarity on who will make those determinations, with what oversight or process for challenging those decisions. And lastly, on the question of felony convictions, I do not think they should be uniformly disqualified. And in fact, they are already addressed in state voting law. Not around candidate requirements, but because one must be registered to vote to file for candidacy, Delaware state law already effectively precludes certain felons from doing so. To quote the State Department of Elections website, a person convicted of a felony may register and vote if they meet the conditions below. Their sentence has been fully discharged and they were not just convicted of a disqualifying felony as defined by the state constitution. Murder or manslaughter, offenses against public administration, and felonies including sexual offense and life offenses. Beyond these reasonable existing restrictions, I don't believe it is the city's place to disenfranchise people who took their time. Newcastle is special, but the requirements to serve on our municipal council cannot be significantly more stringent than those of the legislator and governor president. Also, that there's no time limit to disqualification is concerning. Anyone convicted of any felony ever, a 70-year-old man who recently retired after years of service to the community, but happens to get caught with a couple pot plants back in the 70s and serve on city council, I just don't think that's right. And to the larger point, our justice system has deep and systemic imperfections and produces wildly disparate outcomes, too often just salacious or outright wrongful convictions. The problem is worst for those without the means to lawyer up. There are yawning socioeconomic and racial disparities in our conviction and sentencing rates. I'll leave the rest of my comments for council for consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any other comments on the elections ordinance? Okay, well, we still have to wait till 7, because that's how it was advertised. So we have 5 minutes if anybody thinks of anything, and then we'll adjourn the public hearing and open the regular council meeting at 7. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, we will begin our regular council meeting as we usually do with the pledge of allegiance. Spirit, would you call the roll, please?
Council President Suzanne Souter,
Here.
Councilperson Joseph Day.
Here.
Councilperson Nerman Zubaka. Councilperson Andrew Zelt.
Here.
Councilperson Brian Mataway. Also in attendance, Mayor Valerie Leary, City Administrator Antonina Tantillo, City Treasurer James Wisman, Chief Police Richard McCabe, Building Official Jeffrey Bergstrom, and Lisa Hatfield, Esquire. City Attorney.
Thank you. We are going to change the order of the meeting because we have a guest and we were going to have her presentation first, so she doesn't have to sit here through the rest of our meeting. We're going to start with item 7, pardon me, under new business regarding the establishment of a City of Newcastle Legacy Fund. We have with us tonight Mary Beth Priswara from the Delaware Community Foundation. If you would go to the podium, please, and try to speak into the mic, and thank you for being here.
Council President Plant, and I for the introduction and
Sure.
context for this
Sure.
Presentation.
Sure.
Thank you, Council President. City of Newcastle Municipal Code, Section 11, Municipal Power B. To receive requests, devices, gifts, and donations of all kinds of property within said city and beyond the limits of thereof, for its use and benefit, or in trust for charitable, benevolent, educational, or other public purposes, and to do all things necessary to carry out the purpose of such devices, requests, gifts, and donations. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Vision is the art of seeing things that are invisible. Sometimes in life you have not because you ask not. Also, you have to be ready to receive your blessings or gifts. Quite frankly, the city is not ready, doesn't have the expertise or infrastructure to receive such gifts or requests. To be clear, I'm talking about stocks, bonds, life insurance proceeds, annuities, artwork, cars, valuables, homes, being an IRA beneficiary, being an RMD beneficiary, and more. This is simply about two things: Newcastle today, tomorrow, and forever, and a word, perpetuity or legacy. The City of Newcastle assuming its rightful position as a place that people from Newcastle to New Delhi believe in, love, and cherish. The Delaware Community Foundation is at the intersection of generosity and community transformation. DCF is a 501c3 organization that is the premier think tank, not only in Delaware, but the region. They serve many roles, all of which have the primary focus of strengthening Delaware through community-based philanthropy. They have over $350 million in their stewardship, and they partner with a publicly traded company called SEI for Investment Management Services. SEI themselves has over $1 trillion in assets under management. It's Newcastle time. We have the ability and agency to forge and to sow into our future of our beloved village, all for one and one for all. With no further ado, I gladly present Mary Beth Paswara, Director of Advancement at Delaware Community Foundation.
Thank you, Councilman Medwin. My name is Mary Beth Priswara. I am the Director of Advancement at the Delaware Community Foundation. And I've been asked today to come and speak to you a little bit about the opportunity for perhaps partnership with our organization. Council President, Council members, thank you for having me here tonight. Really appreciate it. And thank you, members of the community. Okay, I'm gonna just tell you when to run a little bit. I'm so pleased to be here. Not only do I work for the Community Foundation, I'm a chartered advisor in philanthropy. So just a little bit to start out about what that is. My job is I'm a matchmaker between people with resources and community needs. And so I have a designation, a CAP, through the American College of Financial Services. It's like being a financial planner with a philanthropic bent. I've worked in the nonprofit sector for 20 years, and I'm a Newcastle girl. How about that? I went to St. Peter's in Newcastle. Newcastle is one of my favorite places on the planet. I consider it home. And when I encountered Councilman Madaway, who just wanted to pick my brain about some of these ideas, I got excited. I hope you will too. You should know that whatever decisions you make, DCF is a nonprofit organization. Whether you decide as a community to open a fund or not, I am not incented. I am not a financial planner, okay? I don't receive any remuneration for opening funds. So that's very important for all of you to know. The Community Foundation, our primary focus is philanthropy and elevating philanthropy in the state of Delaware, including in this beautiful haven of ours, historic castle. Okay, so let's move along to the next slide. So just to let you know what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to skip through a lot of slides. I'd like to start with a little bit of the history of how the Community Foundation began, so that all of you have a sense of what a community foundation can do for a community and how your engagement can help right here. So we're going to talk about community foundations and what the DCF is. We're going to talk about the model and this nonprofit sector. We'll talk about funds and how we create funds to service both nonprofits and agencies. I work primarily with individuals with wealth who are interested in making a philanthropic difference in the community. However, about 25% of my work is with nonprofit organizations and with other agencies like Delaware Parks is a fund holder. Let me think. Almost all of the Delaware libraries have funds with the Delaware Community Foundation. So there's precedent for this kind of thing. We're going to talk a little bit about how to give to the Community Foundation and the process that your community would need to start a fund with us. Next. Just a little bit about community foundations. The first one was in Cleveland about 100 years ago by Frederick Goff, who was the banker for the Rockefeller family. He had this brilliant idea to take trusts that were what we would call nuisance trusts. They had a charitable purpose, but they were sitting there dormant. The people who had set up the charitable trust died. He aggregated those funds, went to the court system, and created the Cleveland Foundation. The Cleveland Foundation, if anyone has been to Cleveland recently, they have completely redone their waterfront. They are doing parks. They are repaving streets. They are attracting new businesses. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was one of their initiatives. They are impacting their educational system. So Cleveland Foundation has under management between very close to $1 billion, and that has grown over the last 100 years. So people have made gifts to that foundation. The foundation stewards those gifts and then makes grants from that foundation to improve the community. The DCF was created in 1986. We received a $2 million grant from the state. And again, those small charitable trusts, we did the same exact thing. We aggregated, we had a lot of banks right there in Wilmington, and we aggregated trusts that were sitting dormant. And we now have $360 million under management in about 1,000 funds. So what does that mean? What does that translate to? The Delaware Community Foundation puts into our community $30 million specifically in nonprofit effort. So everything from schools to libraries to parks. We augment the environment, environmental nonprofits, food banks. We run a grant program, several grant programs, including capital programs, so that nonprofits can come to us and ask for capital monies. We have 19 staff in the state. So I mentioned that our mission is to improve the state through community-based philanthropy. We're a perfect fit. We're right here. And we have 3 core strategies. We help donors and agencies achieve their philanthropic goals. We make grants, and we are what we consider a convener and a leader. So when there are community issues, an example, COVID-19, the pandemic happens. Nonprofits like the museums and arts organizations have no way of raising funds. Same thing with Boys and Girls Club, where children come in and get services. The Delaware Community Foundation ran point on this issue. We raised $6 million in 18 months and disseminated that into our nonprofit community, saving all of those nonprofits. We raised money from foundations and individuals and corporations. There was not a single nonprofit in the state of Delaware that closed during COVID. We were considered the highest performing community foundation in the nation with regard to COVID response. We're a tax exempt organization, which means we can accept gifts. We're a 501c3. We are not a private foundation. We're a public charity, which receives substantial support in the form of grants. We invest our own assets. We're not an investment firm. We are not regulated by the SEC. We have an investment firm that is our outsourced chief investment officer. They manage our invested assets. When we don't do well, we hear from our fund holders that say, we need to change investment firms. And we have done that. 7 years ago, we changed to an organization called SEI, which has $1 trillion under management. One of the reasons why people come to a community foundation is because of our variance power. When you are setting up, and this is what makes us different than, let's say, the trustees of the Newcastle Commons. We have a variance power. So what that means is when there is a restriction or a condition that keeps us from being able to distribute funds. When we're trying to distribute funds, if a nonprofit becomes defunct, we return to the original fund agreement that we have with the organization with which we crafted the fund agreement, and we work to meet the charitable effort. So here's an example. Someone makes an escape gift to a nonprofit that closes, and they served children. We will look for a very similar nonprofit trying to fulfill that mission, because that is the obligation of the organization. That variance power is held by our board, and then we report into the Secretary of State. There are 900 community foundations in the nation, and we are accredited, and we are considered one of the largest. The largest one holds $11 billion. Any guesses where that is? Silicon Valley. You may have heard about one of our vehicles is a donor advised fund. You have to be a donor to do that. Your organization would not be able to access a donor, or not able to open a donor advised fund, but it is our fastest growing charitable vehicle and the fastest growing charitable vehicle in the nation. Skip right through donor advised funds. If you have any questions about donor advised funds, please let me know. You can skip right through private foundations. A designated fund would be something like if someone wants to leave an estate gift and wants to designate that estate gift to a particular couple of charities, that's a designated fund. We would administer that after their passing to ensure their charitable intentions are fulfilled. A field of interest fund could be something like, I don't know what the problems are going to be that come back down the pike, but I really care about Delaware's environment. I'd like to leave a bequest, make a gift to take care of environmental issues that crop up in the state. So that a field of interest is broad. It doesn't name a specific charity. We also do scholarship funds. We have the Delaware Now and Forever Fund. We do nonprofit funds, and this really would be considered a nonprofit fund. Agency funds, nonprofit funds, Delaware Parks has them, the libraries have them. That's what we would consider this, and I'll give you more detail on that. The Kent Sussex Endowment Fund is another example. You can go on from there. When an organization goes to create a fund, they have to decide what is it that they're trying to accomplish. In speaking with Councilman Mataway, we were talking about things like beautification of the city. Wouldn't it be great if there were some planters? Wouldn't it be great if we had a fund to make improvement in park areas? Wouldn't it be terrific if there were funds outside of the tax dollars that are raised by the council to address some issues in the community? There could be a kiosk. There could be a way for there to be forward movement in the historical preservation of historic Newcastle. There are two ways that we can do that. I would suggest not opening initially an endowed fund. An endowed fund stays in perpetuity. We invest it conservatively and we manage it so only a small percentage can be paid out each year. So that just like Wayne Penn did with the trust, and a certain portion goes out and the initial amount that was deposited continues to be invested in those. You would probably seek initially a non-endowed fund, which would allow you a lot of flexibility. So perhaps you start a fund with $25,000 in it, and as a council, you decide, let's go with the planters, and we'll spend 10, and we'll work on fundraising. Let's see how that goes. Because your fund is not endowed, you can spend any amount out of that fund. The initial contribution to that type of fund is $25,000. There is an annual support fee that is at maximum 1%, depending on the amount, the size of the fund. It's a scaffolded fee structure. The larger the fund, the smaller the fee. There is a small investment fee that SEI charges, and then there is a spending policy. A spending policy is our effort to make sure if the fund is endowed, only a particular percentage is spent down so that we never touch the corpus, the original amount given to the community foundation. So people make gifts like this all the time. I'm going to tell you that you have people in your community that love Newcastle. I am one of them. My family We grew up here. I roamed the streets of Newcastle. I had water ice at Wassums. Ran up and down the cobblestone streets. People like me, whose best childhood memories are from the city of Newcastle, probably have some charitable intent. But where do you leave that money? If you'd like to give a little something, to whom do you give it? Well, you can give it to the library and they'll purchase books, and we have a beautiful library and they bring it to me. You can give them to some of the Newcastle Historical Society. But if you aggregate the efforts that we all want to see in the city, there's an opportunity to create a fund with a charitable intent to make a different kind of impact, make a broader impact. People give to causes that they care about. They also do it because they do strategic tax planning. It is smart tax-wise to make gifts, charitable gifts. The DCF can receive any kind of charitable gift. Major life events precipitate a lot of these gifts. Estate planning, if there's an inheritance, when people sell their businesses, when there's a sale of property. Right now, my phone is ringing off the hook because a lot of people are dealing with gains. Because they have gains, they have assets that have gained value. They are trying to make charitable gifts because they would rather do that than give that money to the government, right? See, those are the reasons why people give. The DCF is able to receive any of these types of gifts, which is probably not something that the city can do. We can take cash and public securities. We can accept real estate. I have had people who have given their entire estate to their children except for their home. And their home went to the Delaware Community Foundation for charitable purposes. We sold their home and then have created a fund that is designated to 3 charities in the state. We accept cryptocurrency, property. We accept art collections, stamp collections, coin collections, privately held stock and business interests, and of course, qualified charitable distributions, IRAs, insurance, all of that we can accept. Some of the ways that people give to the DCF, a bequest. I bet you know people who live in this town that if they were to sit down with a charitable planner like me, they would say, I'd really like to do something for Newcastle. It's the place that I've spent my best years. And my job would be to sit down on behalf of your organization and talk with them and make that happen for them. I'm agnostic when it comes to what people want to do with their money. I just want it to get to Delaware Charities as quickly and as often as possible. So what we could do is, if there's someone who becomes clear that they would be interested in making an estate gift, I would meet with them and we would work out those details in private. Beneficiary designations. People have IRAs and they have to disperse them. Certainly they can make IRA designations when they pass in their estate planning. The entire IRA can come to the DCF to go into a fund like the fund for the city of Newcastle. We can also do things like charitable gift annuities and charitable trusts. We can do very complex giving instruments, which most organizations do not have the staff to do. So what would the process be if you wanted to start a fund as a city? There would be a discernment process. You have to decide what it is that you want the fund for, because we would write the fund agreement together. And there is precedent with other historic towns to create funds to beautify, improve, and grow. I don't know, have you heard of the Williamsburg Foundation? Not that we want to be Williamsburg, but that's how it starts. It starts with a fund, a single fund that is going to work on making those improvements that your community sees as important. Again, you would have a fund with us because of our 501c3 status, because of the oversight that we have and the management that we will investigate carefully, and we don't have a dog in the fight. many times when these foundations and other trusts are created, there become a lot of personalities involved. And so the DCF is not that. We want to do what's best for the community as long as it adheres to the initial fund agreement. Also, philanthropic expertise, you would have access to someone like me who could sit down with people who are interested in making gifts privately. That would not be for the community to know about. And then finally, we can accept those complex estate gifts and tangible assets. As a council, you would have to decide who are the decision makers. My suggestion would be 3 people, and perhaps it's the council president, you know, an at-large member, and someone from the historical society, the ED of the historical society. You pick 3 people who are not all in the same organization, who could, and you need an odd number like a jury, work with us to help figure out what it is we want to have happen here with that fund. The fee structure, as I mentioned, it's a 1 fee or less, depending on the fund size. The investment fee is 40 basis points or less, depending on trading activity. And we would choose for your fund. There are 3 or 4 pools of investment, more aggressive and less aggressive. So how does it work? Let's say we create a $25,000 fund just to start out. The fund will distribute only back to the city of Newcastle, and I think Ms. Antonina would have a line item probably in your budget where we can, when you decide that you want to take a draw, it would go to that line item. And then the city would make the purchase or hire the worker or get done whatever it is that that fund was meant for. The draws can be annual or intermittent, depending on what the fund intends to accomplish. Suppose you want to hire a traffic police officer. You know, if that's the goal of the fund, you would need regular operational monies to pay that salary year after year after year. And so you would want to get an annual draw. You may want to just do it on a project basis. Then you would do intermittent draws. Finally, the DCF has variance power and oversight if a fund agreement can't be fulfilled. And what that means, and we've never had to do that, if something really happens, we're there as the impartial, we have all of the documentation. This is the purpose of the fund. This is what it was intended to do. What you're trying to do is outside the fund's original purpose. And when people donate, it is the obligation of the community foundation to fulfill donor intention, regardless of what the city wants to do. So we are the stewards of the donor relationship and serve as kind of the bulwark against people kind of thinking that that's their money. Next. So the DCF philosophy regarding donors, we are collaborative. There's no pressure. We can't do broad, small dollar fundraising. This is very important for everyone to understand. We have a fund called Newcastle County Pride. Newcastle County has things like the Ice Cream Festival, and they will go out and fundraise from corporations and get $5,000 and $10,000 gifts to fund. So they'll go to WSFS, and WSFS will make a $5,000 gift to that fund that is held with us. Because of our 501c3 status, that is WSFS can write that off, right? You all have events here. You could really do the same thing. What we cannot do is little $25 donations. We have a very small staff and cannot handle that kind of broad, small dollar fundraising. However, interested in larger gifts, and we even will help find someone who can go out on behalf of your organization and do fundraising. Finally, we are philanthropic advisors, primarily. We are not, we're not here to squeeze a nickel out of someone. We don't have the same kind of drive that a nonprofit organization that is working to meet its operational needs through small gift fundraising. We are a community foundation. We work with people with resources in an attempt to create change within the state and in communities like the city of Newcastle. That's a little overview of what we can do. Again, there's no particular timeline for this. I happen to know people who live in Newcastle who said, I'd give to that. I would leave something in my will. I'd leave a few $1,000s to Newcastle. I love Newcastle. So if you were to really kind of search yourself, you might know people like that. This kind of fund could be an experiment where you start small and do something broad. And then if it works, continue to add to it. That's all of my presentation this evening. I would love to take any questions that.
I have two questions. I'm a little confused.
Yes,
First, you said that the city could say, pick a line item in our budget that the money would go to. And then a little bit later, you said the donor chooses where the money goes, not the city. So which is it?
okay, what I mean by that is this fund, when we set up this fund with the fund agreement, the fund would be designated to make the gift back to the city only. Okay, so that's what I meant by, and you would put a line item in. So once you take that draw, you have to account for it somewhere. So when you're hiring or using that fund, it would be in your budget somewhere. So, and that's the way that all of you are aware of how that fund, those monies are spent. The donor intention, the donor can't come to us and say, hey, I'd really like to open an amusement park on Battery Park. And here's the money for that. That's not what we do, okay? So we navigate the space between the fund's intention and the donor intention. And my job as a philanthropic advisor is to do the negotiation between the two and only take in money that serves your cause, that serves your fund agreement. We don't accept money on something crazy. If it cannot be fulfilled, it's a nightmare for the community foundation. Because then we have to go in and work on our variance power. We only take funds, knowing what the intention is. We document the intention and it will match the purpose of your.
Okay. Are there any other cities in Delaware that have done this with you?
There is a Greater Lewis Foundation that is part of the Delaware Community
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council?
Just have a comment. These meeting minutes have, the meeting agendas have to get posted a week prior, which everyone knows. And just by walking around town, et cetera, I've had people that have approached me and reached out to me over the phone who have said, what is this? I want to learn more. I want to help the city get to the point to be able to get to that 25,000 threshold. So again, to recap what you said, this would not be allocating any dollars from the city budget or anything. This is providing an opportunity for people to give. Is that correct?
Yes, and have the tax advantage by giving to the community foundation who will, we will give our 501c3 status allows you to take that right off. And then on top of that, you will manage the funds and distribute to you. Yes,
Are individuals allowed to give money tax-free every year?
yes,
It can be quite substantial, if I understand.
yes,
And they can donate real estate, they can donate property.
yes, that's correct. Just to give you an idea of some of the size of the donors that I work with, in the last couple of weeks, I've closed a $5 million gift that was designated to a single nonprofit organization. They don't know about it. Someone loves animals and wants to take care of one of the nonprofits. So, and I've worked on bringing over private foundations, to the tune of $10, $12 million, where the private foundation no longer, it's too hard for them to run the private foundation, and so they opened a fund. Yes.
Aren't the individuals allowed to donate specifically tax-free to organizations like the Humane Society, if they want to support those.
They are, but all the others, they will not be here. So they want the oversight that the Community Foundation provides. So everything, when the Community Foundation receives a gift, we have an awful lot of documentation. Every time we make a disbursement from a fund, we do the research. Is this still a qualified charity? Are they handing in their 990 forms? Are they complying with IRS regulation? We just don't send out grants to anyone. It's only to qualified charities that are continuing to maintain their IRS status. And we also stay away from hate groups. So there is a list of hate.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the purpose of this is not for you to advise all of us individually.
You're correct.
So, and we have a long agenda, so can we kind of confine this to the Newcastle issue?
Yes.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions?
I do have a comment and perhaps a question out of that. I spoke to Councilperson Mattaway around this topic. I don't know how long ago, but I totally love this idea and think this is such a vision and opportunity for our city that has such a rich tradition and history and opportunity to, expand its legacy and impact in town and, use these funds with different purposes, of course, for just that, right? Invest in our community back and, I can be certain that there will be people and organizations willing to donate, for this city for various reasons. So, and here's my question. You mentioned that you would advise us to go into more of a non-endowment fund, sorry for terminology. Is there opportunity to open several different funds throughout the thing? Because, as things develop, I guess, so could you speak a little more about that?
Yes, the reason I've suggested that you open a non-endowed fund, if you endow it, you can only spend 4.5% of it annually. That's a small amount. And so if you have projects that you want to endeavor, it will be probably hard to do that at 4.5% of $25,000. Yes, you can open several funds. Delaware Parks has several funds. I'm thinking of other organizations that have a beautification fund. We have a nonprofit that has a capital fund, a parking lot fund. They have several funds, and they fundraise based on whatever the fund agreement says. So whatever that topic is. So people may want to, let's say that you create a fund for streets. You just want to beautify the streets, street beautification. Great, we love that. Let's try another one, a preservation of something. Let's do a preservation fund and see if people want to kick into that. Absolutely.
So, so to that point, can the non-endowment fund also have those characteristics as well based on a donor? So let's say we have a general, fund for the city of Newcastle, but a particular donor would like to donate for beautification purposes or whatever. It can be whatever purpose, right? Whatever amount is, and then say, I would like for this to be spread out over 10 years or percentage-wise. Can that still fit under non-endowment fund, or would you create a separate fund in that instance just for that particular purpose? Just curious.
So what that person is offering is a pledge to you. It's a pledge, and we would manage that pledge. So they can make a gift over 5 or 10 years, yes, and it would go into your fund. And so however the donor wants to do that, as long as they understand what the purpose of that fund is, we're all good. We will certainly let them give gifts over time.
Thank you for coming tonight.
I have a question. Can this be tabled and we have a special meeting? Because we're way out of the parameters of a meeting time to have a presentation.
Well, okay, thank you. Anyone else from council, any other comments?
If we do have questions, who do we email or call?
You can send them to me.
Okay,
Okay.
so questions can be sent to Ms. Tantillo and she can forward them to you. Would that work?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
And
I mean, it's just that we're 40 minutes in and we have a long agenda, so I'm sorry, but I think we have to call a halt to this.
Agreed.
I have one last question. I hope it's short. How fast, given that council approves this at a certain point, how fast can the fund be created and people can start donating to organizations?
Days, couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you for coming. I'm sorry.
I appreciate
Okay, the next item is to look at the minutes of the November 12th public hearing on three ordinances, 548, 555, 550, excuse me, and 551. Are there any comments or corrections to those minutes from council? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted? A second? All in favor? All right, those minutes are approved. And the second set of minutes is from the regular meeting also of November 12th. I have a couple of small corrections. Does anyone else have anything? Okay, on page 1, under Del Dot presentation, I think this is just a typo. The last line of the first paragraph says the project will complete it in 3, the word 3 phases, but then the numeral 2. So that just needs to be corrected to the numeral 3. And then on page, pardon me, page 5 at the bottom, under Councilperson Jay's comments, the first line, it says the next Budoku event will be Saturday, October 16th. It should be November 16th. And I have one more. Yes, on page 13, in the third full paragraph, beginning Councilperson Mataway countered. In the second line, it says Council President Souter asked, no reducing the supply of housing. I think that should be how reducing the supply of housing. If there are no other comments or corrections, is there a motion to approve the minutes as corrected? And second? All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved, subject to the corrections noted. Thank you. Mr. Wisman, our treasurer, has a report for us.
I don't need a microphone. I'll speak loudly. If anyone has any questions after I'm through, feel free to call me. This is for the period ending November 30th, which is 5 months into our year, which is 42%. Anyway, we have a total of $13,365,181.87 in our accounts. Of that, $9,996,086.60 is in the unrestricted, which leaves the balance of $3,369,095 in the restricted funds. Now, with saying that we're 5 months into the year, that's 42%. We've collected 58% of our revenues. The major revenue that we have, the large and significant revenue, is property taxes. And as of this month, we've collected 99% of it. So the remaining of the revenues are various and sundries that we have. On the expense side, our expenses are generally pretty even through the year. And we have spent 40% of our budget. So we've collected 58% and we've spent 40%. Hence, we have money in the bank. And financially, we're in sound position. So if there's any questions, that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Wisman. Any questions from council for Mr. Wisman? Okay, thank you so much. Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report subject to audit? Second? All in favor? The report is approved. Report from the city administrator.
Thank you. Unfortunately, our code officer, who's doing a fantastic job, has moved on to pursue another career. That job posting is active on Indeed and it's on our website. Unfortunately, that delayed the posting of our second department position that will be posted as soon as possible. So we are looking, if you know anyone, please encourage them to apply. Regarding the closure here, thankfully we have some updates. The contractor is working with their subcontractors who have the pier and gateway built up in Canada, so that is underway. They are on track to deliver that at the beginning of January. Atlantic Subsea, who's our contractor, is tentatively scheduled to begin driving the piles and installing at the beginning of February, and they'll solidify the dates as we get closer. And they've assured us that they will not allow the project to bleed into the moratorium period, as it unfortunately did last year, where they could not drive piles for a period of time. So as soon as we have more solidified dates, I will update everybody. Regarding the city website, we continue to work on the large building project updates, and that should be completed by the end of the week. Plans for the upcoming school year with the University of Delaware, the upcoming semester with the University of Delaware are underway to begin a larger website upgrade project. At the last council meeting, DelDOT gave a presentation regarding some work they're going to do within the city. We were awaiting an update from Norfolk Southern regarding whether or not they were going to clean a drainage ditch along where this project is going to occur. There is not an update at this time. Norfolk Southern has not completed the work, so we are awaiting an update from them. Regarding the dog park, we have just received the second quote for a survey. That was a better quote than the first one. So with that, we will go ahead and proceed with having the survey completed and hopefully have an update by the next meeting. If not, maybe there might be some delays with the holidays, but hopefully as soon as possible. Really good news, we have purchased a new system called Code Red. I talked about this during the budget season. Code Red is an emergency alert system. It has diversified forms of communication, which residents can sign up for Code Red alerts for emergencies and for general alerts. It offers notification via text, email, phone call, many different options, social media, and this will allow us to have better communication with our residents more frequently, and will allow us to share, some general news about the city. We will be posting the details for the registration later this week, and we will have a table at Spirit of Christmas where we'll have information about this. So please stop by and register with us. Also during Spirit of Christmas, we will have some ornaments for sale if anyone would like to purchase. The new mobile stage is ready. Public Works has graciously completed the lighting, so we are thankful to them for their hard work on that. This will be making it a new lights for Christmas over the weekend. It's beautiful and we're very excited to have it. I also would like to thank Public Works and MSC for their great work in putting up the beautiful Christmas lights and the beautiful wreaths and garlands made by Arisafa. The city is beautiful and the Christmas spirit is alive. The grant updates throughout the city, we have really great news. We've been advised that we'll be awarded $21,000 in a grant from the Delaware Bike Council, matched with a $2,000 donation from Bike Delaware to pursue a feasibility study of a new and expanded bike path along the Delaware River to the northern part of town along the Twin Spans development, and we can drive to the historic part of town. We've also been awarded a DTI grant for cybersecurity that was approved by DEMA and FEMA. And this is for cybersecurity and IT upgrades. This was a little over $17,000. In October, I believe I updated everyone last month that we partnered with the Newcastle Partnership and Encore to apply for M&T grants. Unfortunately, we were not awarded either of those grants as M&T was overloaded with grant applications, but we were encouraged to continue applying and pursuing these grant opportunities with them. This month, we're working on additional grant applications with DTI and solid waste infrastructure grants by the end of the month. And I believe I mentioned this at the last month meeting, but I just wanted to advise that we were awarded 10 grants for trees at Susie Park and for the dog park. If there's any questions.
Any questions from council for Ms. Tantillo? Thank you. Mr. Bergstrom, I believe you have a report for us about a property that's been a difficulty.
Thank you. The rear addition of Mount Salem Church on East 4th Street has deteriorated further after original stabilization 15 or 20 years ago. And we sent a structural engineer out to take a look at the place. And we have determined that the rear addition, which is just the stage area behind the church, it's not really visible from the street. That needs to come down and the structure needs to be stabilized with a wall underneath the deteriorated beam that holds up the ridge of the church. So, and we're proceeding to do that, yeah. Before winter, our engineer suggested that this winter would probably be the end of that structure, and we're very hopeful that no damage to the main structure occurs, but we want to stop that possibility from.
Thank you. I know that's been of concern to the neighbor. The deterioration of that building. And Chief McCabe?
I just have a brief report. My monthly report, is not on the web yet. You'll notice the, response time, graph in the back, is a little off. So we're working on correcting that. And when I'm fixed with that, we'll definitely post it. No other real major incidents, this month. I did want to talk briefly about a couple of initiatives we have coming up. We have, selected our adopted families for the annual Christmas, giveaway. I think it's 3 families that we got help identifying through the Lions Club and from some of the counselors in Cary Downey. So obviously, Captain Sugar is still taking donations, but at this point, she's pretty much purchased everything she can for these kids, and we're ready to go. They'll have something for them Saturday, the 21st. As you've heard, Spirit of Christmas is coming up this Saturday. I just wanted to touch base on a couple of things that have happened over the last few events that we've provided some security for. I know there's questions involving some road closures and stuff like that. So I know I've talked about this in the past, and we've certainly been open about this at some of these meetings, but the decision to close some of these roads is based on a handful of things, and most significantly, the mixing pedestrian traffic and vehicle traffic, especially on Delaware Street with the angle parking and the amount and the volume of traffic that's there poses a serious risk. So it's in our best interest to make sure that these roads are closed and we eliminate those threats. And then there's other factors involving this that we don't make this up. This is best practice type of security, procedures that we get from other agencies that deal with similar events like ours. So our goal is to provide the safest event that we can for our folks and as least intrusive. So we've been very accommodating to local residents to get them to their residents, business owners. We've certainly missed on some of the outreach. We recognize that, and that's why we're really looking forward to the Code Red program, where we can maybe get in front of some of these events with some last minute details. So I just wanted to make sure that we all understood, really the reasoning behind this. And then the last thing I'll say is, DelDOT comes in to help us with some of these road closures, which gives us an opportunity to be on foot, as opposed to closing intersections. They do that at no cost, and that's a remarkable service that DelDOT's been able to provide for us for years. So, if you come across some of the DelDOT workers have said they've been approached and kind of, questioned about why they're there. So they're there at our behest, and they're positioned where we ask them to be. So I think I've shared this for a very long time. My door's open. If you've got concerns with the way we're setting things up, I'd be glad to talk to you. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Questions from Chief and Council? Okay, council communications, Mr. Day?
Thank you. I just have a few things. As you stated earlier, the last Old Newcastle Dinner Crew event was Saturday, November 16th. And we concentrated on the area south of Dobbinsville, where the new fishing pier parking lot, and we went south on Route 9 all the way to the bridge. We had about 30 volunteers show up. We collected about 20 bags of trash, a bunch of tires, a couch, some other debris. So I think it was very successful. I'd like to thank Department of Public Works for helping us out and getting everything cleaned up after we collected it all. But again, it was very successful, so thank you everybody that did turn out for that. The only other thing I have is tonight on the agenda is the Boonville Boatyard lease. We've talked about this in the past. I believe we are at a point for council to discuss. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. J. Mr. Zell?
So this past weekend on Saturday, we had Pancakes with Santa from the Lions Club. It was a great event. I'd like to thank Goodwill, for the use of the facility and making all the good pancakes. Our local police were there as well, giving out, things to the kids, which was, amazing. So, I know the Lions gave a nice, donation out to, Goodwill and, good things happening from the Lions. This weekend, Saturday, Spirit of Christmas, Saturday from 10 to 4, my house will be open. So look for that. Also on Saturday, our SAPA will be selling wreaths and poinsettias at the library, and they also have their raffle. So come out and celebrate the Spirit of Christmas within town. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
Good evening, everybody. This time of year, but I think throughout the entire year, but this time of year especially, I'm reminded how amazing our community is and how many amazing residents and businesses and nonprofits we have in town volunteering their time, effort, and resources to, help each other out in different ways. I want to thank you, everybody, from our South Lions Club to Councilperson Dave, organizing Litter Crew every month. Councilperson Hadaway for coordinating with 3 countries to provide drinks and food for tonight. And our resident organized Spirit of Christmas for 2 years in a row now. So thank you all for putting time to make our community better. I want to just add one more thing about the grants that I've learned from Encore, that we have received $125,000 from DENRAC for playground. Now bringing the fundraised amount to $912,000. The goal is 1.2 million. So the city and Encore are very close to fundraising that amount for the phase 2. So we're looking forward to the Palmar Nickel inspired playground in Battery Park that hopefully provides a lot of fun for our kids and neighbors. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. I wanted to wish everybody happy holidays. I have my little tie over here. I hope everybody's safe in upcoming month, surrounded by a lot of joy and able to be thankful for everything that we have, starting with our health and everything else surrounding us in abundance. And Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you see a lot of new opportunities in the new year. And just wanted to lastly thank all the employees and staff that help, run the city on an annual basis. This is my annual thank you to all. So everybody, from the town, making this town a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McAfee?
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to acknowledge the lives of all those residents who unfortunately lost their life this year, as well as all those new lives that were created. To the old residents that have moved away, I'd like to say once a New Castilian, always a New Castilian. And to the new residents that moved in this year, I wish you a hearty welcome and hope that your holiday season is filled with cheer. February is the month of love, and Saturday, February 8th, we will be standing with the Goodwill Fire Company, Representative Mimi Minor Brown and Senator Nicole Poore and the Blood Bank of Delaware for a Be Someone's Blood drive here in the city of Newcastle. It will take place at the Goodwill Fire Company. Please stay tuned for more information on that. And then finally, last month I was emotional at times because I honestly felt like crying because I have God's honest concern that this place can have some irrevocable harm done to it. And in my emotion, there were 2 points for record that I would like to just get out there. One, that the Planning Commission, along with the Fire Chief, unanimously were in support of the moratorium. And 2, The statesman in me requires me to say that I know that justice is slow. And to the extent that the presentation or the studies resonate with any of my colleagues, my olive branch is extended to listen, to collaborate, should you be interested in any variance or thereof of ordinance 550. Thank you. I yield my time.
Okay, thank you. Well, what I have to say is a lot of what you've heard. Thanks to Arisafa for once again organizing the preparation of 140 lovely wreaths featuring natural materials to decorate our town for the holidays. I want to especially thank Kim Whiff and Linda Susky, who organized the project and coordinated the many volunteers who helped to decorate the wreaths. Thanks, as others have said, to our public works employees who hung the wreaths, as well as preparing the Christmas tree and wrapping the lamppost with lights and other things to beautify the city for the holidays. And they did all this in addition to their regular duties, collecting our trash and recycle and cleaning out the storm drains and all those things that they do that we don't always notice to keep our city functioning and comfortable and safe. Breakfast with Santa, I agree with Councilperson Zelt, was a great event. And for me, this always feels like the beginning of the holiday celebrations in Newcastle. It's a great time to connect with family and with friends and enjoy seeing excited children visiting Santa. And thanks also to the Lions Club members who maintain this great Newcastle tradition. I'll also remind you that Spirit of Christmas is coming up on Saturday. It includes vendors on the green. There's a winter market in the library and with various sales to benefit the library, variety of musical presentations, Santas from the various cultural traditions of Newcastle, American, Dutch, and Swedish, and the tree lighting ceremony at 4:30. So I thank all who've worked hard to make this event happen, and I want to wish everyone happy holidays. Thank you. Business from the mayor.
You'll forgive me for not standing today, but I have a bum knee. Thank you to all of you. Most of what I was going to say was covered by everybody, whether it's Arisafa or Spirit of Christmas, or thanking our Public Works and MSC, our magic elves, for putting lights on the poles and lights on the trees and hanging wreaths and everything else. To Mr. Mattaway on February 8th for the blood bank, I did that once. I'm not doing it again. As Mr. Baldini can attest, they had to help me out because blood giving does not agree with me. I don't mind looking at blood. That doesn't bother me, but giving it apparently didn't agree. I have to say that I appreciated Mr. Campbell's report in our packet this month, and I'm sorry that he moved on, but he did move on for kind of like a dream job, and it was not because of anything else. He actually liked working here pretty much. I am looking forward to the tree lighting at Spirit of Christmas on Saturday, and I'll get to count down for the tree lighting. So be sure if you're there that you join me in counting down. And finally, again, we have things going on at the library, a market on the green. We have Shaw Alley will be open, so there'll be a lot of opportunities this Saturday, and be sure you get out and about. Thank you so much, everybody. I wish you all a happy holidays and a safe and happy new year.
Thank you. Compliments from Goodwill. Nothing more. Do I see you back there? Oh, and the chief. Wow, we get both of you tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to cover a couple of leadership changes, and then I'll turn it over to Captain Moore. At the beginning of the month, the fire company held their annual elections. Most of our leadership has stayed the same. Myself as the fire chief. We do have a new deputy fire chief, Aaron Baco. He'll be here next month for me to introduce to all of you and the community. Terrence recently moved into the city, within the last year. He's just about a 5-year member of the department. He comes from a long line of firefighting experience, so we're very grateful to have him. The previous deputy chief, Keith Stockton, has moved on to serve as a member of the board of directors, so he is still very much involved. With that, I wish you all a Merry Christmas. I'll turn it over to Captain.
Thank you.
Is there any questions, the November, fireman must, questions for that? We stay pretty consistent, with little lower, numbers on, fire calls, but other than that, we've been pretty consistent. We want to thank everybody, that came out, on Saturday for breakfast with Santa. It's always good to see everybody. It's always good to have that collaboration there with the Lions, the city police, and the community itself. So I hope everybody got some full bellies and enjoyed Santa as well. Operation Santa. Well, speaking of Santa, started its rounds tonight. So check out Facebook. And it'll have what nights that it will be out in the developments. If Mother Nature were to come into play and we have to reschedule, it will be updated on our Facebook page. That way everybody knows when it got rescheduled. Lastly, we also received a grant since there's been talks about receiving grants and all, which is always a good thing. We received a grant from the Norfolk Southern, amount of $7,500. That money will go towards hose, appliances, adapters, and hose testing equipment.
Thank you. Public comments. Mr. Seldes usual will be our timekeeper. You have 3 minutes. Again, please sign in on the pad that's on the podium and speak into the microphone so that we can all hear you. Thank you. And state your name and where you live, please.
Good evening. I'm Carol Vukolich and I live at 33 The Strand. I'm here this evening on behalf of 67 Newcastle Historic Resident District homeowners. 34 of those homeowners reside on the Strand. They have all spoken out against the granting of permits for tourist homes in the Historic Residence District. As an aside, I might say that that's 34 against, compared with 6 who have said that they have no opposition. In addition to that 34, there are also 33 additional Historic Residence District homeowners who have asked to be recognized as opposed to tourist homes in any part of the Historic Resident District in the city of Newcastle. I am here, however, to thank the council for their action last week. They took action to ask and to charge the Planning Commission with the task of preparing regulations for short-term rentals in the Historic Residence District. And we're very thankful for that action that you all have taken. Just so everyone is clear, we 67 homeowners are adamantly against tourist homes in the Historic Residence District. We are not against tourist homes in the commercial district in the city. We also are not against the permitting of traditional bed and breakfast kinds of short-term rentals. Those kinds of rentals, though traditional, means that the homeowner stays in the home when the paying guest is there and is there to interact in a people-to-people kind of way with the paying guests. It's a perfect opportunity for the homeowner to have additional funding if they need to make some repairs to their home. So it offers a way to provide some support to the home. But it also provides, in our view, a superb opportunity for a real people-to-people ambassadorships for our city. Here's a person who lives in the city, who loves the city, who now becomes free of charge. Someone to help these paying guests understand the value of our gem of a city. We know that these already operate, and they're probably operating under the radar in our city. So hopefully, as the planning commission addresses short-term rentals, they think about traditional as well as tourist in terms of the kinds of short-term rentals, and that they choose to keep the tourist. Before I leave, I'm going to take just one more. You know that the planning commission is not meeting again until January 22nd, and that it will probably take some time for the revised regulations. So we're hoping to request a moratorium on the part of the council so that additional permits are not granted for tourist homes in the residential area.
That would have to be announced at the next meeting, so it wouldn't make it that much sooner than the planning commission, but thank you. I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Lori Williamson. I live on 30th Strand. I wanted to talk briefly about preservation and heritage tourism, and I'll explain that. My husband and I went to Prague some years ago, and they were about 12 years on the other side of getting rid of the Russian KGB. As a result of that, there was a lot of graffiti, there was US hip hop music everywhere, massive amounts of cheap merchandise, and I struggled to see the spirit and the integrity of Prague. What Prague had and what they should have recognized at the time was their own history, was their culture, was their historical charm, and their war-torn stories. I mentioned to my husband when we were there that once they find their historical voice, people will flock to that place. That brings me to our town. This town is so well preserved, and it's just immaculate. When people come here and the draw is the preservation, people don't have to look around and wonder what it was like. They literally can look at the market when we're there Saturday and go, wow, that's what happened so many years ago. They can walk down our residential streets. They can see us moving and grooving in and around there and know exactly. That's got to be what it looked like, with the exception of cars, right? Where the still homes are there. Our preservation is profound. And if we embrace our preservation first of this town, not just commercial expansion for the purposes of making money, but preservation first and then heritage tourism, we do that collectively as a group and we don't encroach on commercial efforts or residential living, you're gonna thrive. I come from the West Coast. We don't have these historical towns out here. The gem that is here is profound. I hope we don't lose sight that what we should be doing first and foremost is making decisions that benefit the historic nature of our town, promote heritage tourism, and don't harm our residents in the process. With our residents, I'm from the Strand, but there's many of us that are all over. We really love this town and we want to keep it and promote it and enhance it. but never at the expense of the town or our residents. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Vinnie Beal. I live at 26 The Strand. I have two issues. The first, I'd like to address the council. As a result of being a Newcastle resident for a number of years, I was shocked at the November meeting when Brian Mattaway's suggestion to table development for 1 year was turned down. At that meeting, we learned that there are approximately 1,200 building units which have been approved to date, which have not been built. And we've been thinking that each unit probably occupies about 2,500 people. I think the population of this increase. So I've talked to other people, other residents that feel in a similar vein as I do. And I would implore you to go back and take another look at this. I think Brian has indicated the same. My second issue deals with Public Works, probably the city administrator. And that is that I think we have signs throughout town saying that this is a tree city. Trees have leaves. They fall in the fall. And I think the casual approach that we've had at this juncture in picking up leaves has led to a lot of discussion among residents that the city's not doing their part. We have rain tonight forecast in the future. So the wet leaves that we have in the streets, the sidewalks are gonna stay there. And we all know this weekend is the spirit of Christmas. And I hope that somehow the city finds a way to clear the streets in the old section of town so that the city can look as well as it possibly can. Thank you.
If I may just make a comment, as I mentioned at the last meeting, you're absolutely doing our part to make sure that these are swept and storm drains, especially with this rain this week, have been cleared, so that is coming to us.
And I'll just add, I put out 3 big bags of leaves last week and they were all gone, so the Public Works picked them up. So they are doing it.
And just a clarification, the moratorium is not on currently approved or already approved projects, but it would have been on future projects. So anything that is already approved and has been approved, the moratorium would not have affected at all.
Phil Gross, not from the Strand. I just gotta say that I was shocked that 3 council people spoke without any facts on how many units are in the pipeline. I FOIA'd it, and this Friday I'll find out. I guarantee you that there's no way that you guys got it right. You got it wrong. Just because more houses, more units, more traffic is gonna lower the cost for new residents to come into town, you're so way off base. And Mr. Damn surprised with you and your connections with the county, you should know better. Getting back to the agenda item number 1 from old business. I gotta say, this city was founded in 1651. It took a few hundred years to finally say felons don't matter. It's amazing. So I implore you as a group, as a council, to not include that in the decision-making process for voting candidate restrictions. And I'll say again, if it is passed, including the electronic, being able to file electronically, I will immediately, before the weekend, go and put in a filing with the court to have our current mayor step down, because that violates what you're passing. What you're passing is saying that from here on, you can do that, which means, and legal counsel, feel free to look it up, does not mean that prior is allowed. It's from here going forward. So, shot across the bow, call it what you want. But those two issues are important. As far as the houses, you know, it's amazing. I feel that in residential areas, they should be kept pristine. And I feel that the only houses in a residential area should be owner occupied. So if you want to have people stay or put it, you know, through the city where you're accepting people to stay short term, feel free. But I definitely say, if it's residential, we're not opening the town to just anything, including what was pushed through down Packett's Alley. That was done without anybody knowing that it was gonna happen, and that's shady.
It is my hope the council will not vote on agenda item one, the ordinance on the table as it is written tonight. But in the off chance that you do end up doing that, I'd like to summarize what remained of my point from earlier, which is the last thing I didn't really get a chance to get to is a lot of the issues that I believe the language in the ordinance about the age restriction and the restriction on the felons is trying to address, namely the issue of bad candidates, will be addressed by having a requirement that candidates get signatures before getting on the ballot, like it is in many other jurisdictions. Thank you.
David Collins. Dobbs from Salem. It's too dangerous to stay here. One of the meetings. I was baptized in '70. The Lord Jesus Christ, my Savior back then. I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And in addition to that, one of the great presents, but turned out to be too big of a box. So I sent it to the administration building. I got everybody here, that one. Then I got one for Max, I don't know, start. So that's the administration building for you. I sent that same thing out. Sent it to the House, State House, State Senate, State Wildlife official, never found a court judge in the state back in 1994. I was decided to start a human rights education campaign back in 1993. 30 plus years I've been doing it. 20 plus years I've been attacked by various governments. Just staying in my house. There's 2 city blocks involved. And just going here. Real bummed out here. I appreciate y'all listening to me. There's one thing I do need, like to receive a copy of the body cam footage of the conversation I had with Mr. K back here, and a copy of the footage conversation I had with the police
before I left. So I'll be foiling that, since I get that, I'm just letting you know verbally, right? I appreciate your help on it. Otherwise, anything at the time, I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Fairland Trail, like, there was Baptist Church, and that's what I got. That's what I'm saying. And I always consider myself a Christian first, and church I keep down, doesn't have a problem with that. So, connection I have with Newcastle is, I came to Newcastle, sped, I was clean, I had a place to stay, I was repaired in the first day. And then I went back, this is a constant cycle, so, I wouldn't be alive. My house died, wasn't in my, as a kid. There's other reasons I'm there. I used to make $200,000 a year. I could have lived anywhere. And I stayed in the house. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Ready? Okay. The next item on the agenda is ordinance 552, second reading, which we will do by title. This is an ordinance to establish a new chapter 77 in the Newcastle City Code relating to the election candidacy declaration requirement. Since this was my ordinance originally, and there seems to be a lot of misconceptions about it out there, I want to just give a little bit of background on it. I originally drafted the first version in 2023 after we had a contentious election in which one candidate did file electronically, and there was a lot of confusion and contention about that. The city solicitor at the time ruled that or advised that the filing was valid because the current code does not address electronic filing, neither specifically allowing it nor prohibiting it. It's just not mentioned, because it's an older section of our code. So I felt we needed to bring things up to date a bit. I also wanted to try to avoid future conflicts about this. And I thought, we do a lot of things electronically these days. You can file your income tax electronically, you can do your banking electronically, you can file for a job electronically. So why shouldn't you be able to file as a candidate for city office, as long as we have suitable precautions in place, which are part of the ordinance? That same year, 2023, we had some resignations, which necessitated special elections. So the ordinance had to be set aside because you can't change the election rules too close to an election. And so now we're coming back to it to try to get things established in time for our election next year. The issue of the age of the candidates and whether or not someone who's been convicted of a felony can file are not new in this ordinance. The age requirements, I believe, are part of state code, and the provision that someone who has been convicted of a felony cannot serve as a municipal elected official is also part of state code. And that state code goes back long before our issue that we're discussing today. The reason I added the sentence about I've never been convicted of a felony, or the affirmation that I've never been convicted of a felony, to the filing form for candidacy was for clarity and so that everyone would be aware that this was a requirement. But I repeat, this is not new.
It is. State law says.
Mr. Gross, public comments are over. The ordinance has been reviewed by our city solicitor and revised significantly.
City in court.
Fine, but not right now, please. We need to go forward with the meeting. So that was the basis. This ordinance does not address whether or not the city should make some exceptions for allowing people with felony convictions to run for office. It's possible that there's.
So do you want me to read the code?
If from Ms. Walton's office, if she's the attorney with us for tonight.
All right, in anticipation of this, I pulled up the code so I could give you the exact language under 15 Del C 7555 C1, unless otherwise specified in the charter, which it is not in your charter, or any municipality that I know of's charter, a candidate for municipal government shall not have been convicted of a felony. So there's no wiggle room on that. They also shall be 21 years old or 21 years of age. So there is no wiggle room on that.
Barring expungement.
Whether or not it can be added to the charter is something for another day, but I don't know of any municipality that's ever done that.
Okay, so the point is that this ordinance is not about those two issues. It is not about age, and it is not about whether the person has a felony conviction in their past. If we want to try to address those issues with legal guidance, perhaps we can, but it is not part of this ordinance. If we struck that sentence about, I have never been convicted of a felony from the filing form, it would not change the fact that current law prohibits a convicted felon from serving as a municipal elected official. So we may want to address this in the future, but it's not part of this ordinance. So that's the main thing I wanted to say about it tonight. And so tonight, we're going to consider whether or not we should allow electronic filing. I've said my piece, so I'll invite any comments from the rest of the council. It's ordinance 552, and I read the title. And can people still hear me? Because the red light's on my microphone. Okay, so I guess it's hanging in there. So are there any comments from other members of council about this ordinance? Questions or discussion?
Yes. So I just have, I think the answer is yes, but to me, the largest, thank you for bringing up to the code, first of all, the online filing. I'm a big proponent for, a lot of things that our city does should be digitized. I think people should have freedom to submit in paper form, but also electronically for a lot of things. As we're in day and age that we are currently. And as long as the code for the state allows us to do this, I think this would be a fantastic opportunity to allow people, especially, like, I'm a working person, like working Monday through Friday. I get to work from home, so I can go in an office and file. Not everybody works from home and has the ability to take off work and come in the office during working hours and submit that form. So I think that's my perspective as it relates to filing online. I think as a city, we'll ensure that, the forms are submitted in a way that they're supposed to be as it relates to, electronically, and that we have reviewed them and requested. I think one thing that I'm seeing and that I really like is they'll reach out back and say, hey, we're seeing something's missing, or can you please provide this in addition? And I think that's normal, if I went in person and submitted a permit for something in the city, they would say, oh, can you also attach this or send this? That's, to me, email versus in person seems to be same method of communication. So thank you for bringing that. I know that we talked about it last year. It just wasn't the right time in between elections to bring this up. So very timely. So just confirmation from our solicitor. What we have here, requirements are in compliance with the state code. This is nothing, we're not making up or adding requirements as it relates to the 4 items listed for the candidates. This is compliance with a state code for the municipalities, correct?
Well, that is correct, except for that you have to be a resident. That's
Yeah, of course.
That's your own requirement. Yeah, it's Title 15, Chapter 75. I thought you were asking me title. I apologize. I wanted to clarify that for you.
It's not first there in the ordinance.
Oh, and I should also have said the part about correcting the deficiency in the filing is also from state code. And so that's always been there too. It's just, it wasn't written specifically into our code, and I thought it would be helpful to have it there. I take that to mean you skipped one of the items on the form, or we require some documents, proof of residence, the notarized form to verify identity. If that's missing or incomplete, those are the kind of things that the Delaware law provides. I think it's 2 business days to make the correction. So in other words, as soon as they notice either the city, someone in the city office or someone from the Board of Election notices the deficiency, they notify the person, and the person has 2 days to make, 2 business days to provide the missing material or answer the unanswered question or whatever the issue is. And that applies even if the 2 days takes it beyond the filing deadline, as long as they got the initial form in before the filing deadline. So that also is from state code. It's not something we made up here.
Madam President, just a couple questions.
Yeah, sure.
So, in C, it talks about, any e-signature software that creates a legally binding electronic or digital signature. So even before that, does that mean I can't sign the form and scan it and send it in? I gotta use an e-signature format? And if so, do we have a list of those? How does somebody know that the e-signature software is legally binding?
So the packets have to be, the packets have to be requested and the document, if they request it electronically, will be sent electronically via the system that the city uses.
Okay.
So if someone wants to file electronically, they contact the city and say, I want to do this. City sends them the electronic package in the proper form, in the recognized package like DocuSign or other software packages.
How does that work with the notarized form?
So we have a notary in office, who would be assigned to that and notarize it. And the documents are already worth. And they would have to be
So after they e-signed it, the notary in our office would notarize it
electronically, and
electronically.
they would send, their identification to notary.
Okay, and then last question I have is, who is reviewing the package for deficiencies?
That is the, internal, office staff, administrative staff, who has done it for years. It's Ms. Alvada, who reviews the packets, whoever, the city administrator, directs in the office.
So if there is a deficiency, does that come to you?
Yeah, so it would go to, the person who's overseeing it would advise me, but they would oversee the handling of that.
Okay, that's all the questions I have, thank you.
I would like to add to, Councilperson Day's question here. Have these procedures in place that we're trying to put for electronic applications? Have we reached out to state to see, Department of Elections, how they handle, electronic filings, and just curious what their best practices?
Our charter doesn't prohibit it, so we can allow it, and however we allow it is up to us. We've reached out to a couple of their municipalities, some don't allow it, some do, because their charter also allows for it. So the handling of it is up to each municipality.
So the Department of Elections doesn't have guidelines of saying how to verify, the person's identity and, things like that we're talking about here.
Yeah, they do have guidelines and recommendations, but it's up to us, but they recommend like renewing the license and things like that.
I mean, just general comment, we're not having thousands of people nominating themselves to be in public office. So we're talking about a handful of people who are gonna be, I hope for more, but I'm just saying, it's probably not gonna be the crazy lift for our office to verify all these instances, people submitting their candidacy. So it is a little less scale than county or the state. That's just something I would like to note. I think if there's any issues, I think it can be addressed for that particular applicant. The other thing I wanted to just ask was a 2-year term. Have you checked with other municipalities? What is the reason behind it? I know it's probably historic. And also does this apply? Yeah, residency. And then also does it include renting? Because a lot of people come to this town renting first and then purchasing a home.
Yeah,
So
you
would
would
that?
be considered.
Okay, so it's.
Yeah, it's residency, not homeowners.
And anybody can give me context on at least 2 years. Is there a reasoning for that?
That was in the code for.
I don't remember the date that code was established, but it's part of the code, yeah. I think if I remember correctly, the state law provides 1 year, but gives the cities the option of making it longer. And for whatever reason, years ago, the council decided 2 years. If we're going to revisit some of these other factors, perhaps that's something we can discuss, but that's not within the purview of this particular ordinance.
Yeah, my only time I would consider, shortening this period is, if we had to struggle to get candidates, as we have regular elections. So I think that would be my major concern about this, but at this time, I'm not seeing necessarily lack of candidates being submitted, but that would be my major concern if we're, somehow limiting people who are interested to be on the council, but at that time when elections happen, because they don't happen at, like, there's special elections, all that stuff, so, you don't choose to come live somewhere so you can be public official, of course. But anyways, that's.
Just one other question too. So theoretically, if I came into the office and I got the packet and I took it home and filled it out and then realized I'm not gonna make it, or I just can't get in there, and I scanned it and sent it in, what would happen?
So you would have to contact us, we'd have to probably send it to you. in the
Okay,
electronic.
so you would say that's a deficiency and you would send it to us, send it to somebody, whoever, electronically, to fill it out electronically?
Yes.
Okay,
You can, if you want, you request your packet in electronic form and paper form, that's fine too. And then however you decide to send it in, that's up to you.
So you're saying that in this scenario, if councilperson Day, in this example, request that paper form and he scanned it, signed it, scanned it, that would be acceptable currently?
you would not, it would be deficient.
I thought you just said that it could be submitted anyway.
No, requested both ways. Is what I said.
That's what I heard.
Ask for the electronic packet to be sent, so it could be, because that's with the software that has the legally recognized signature.
I'll say I use DocuSign. I work at university and I work on establishing data sharing agreements with state agencies, school districts, hospitals. So you can honestly use it on your phone. I know this could be digital divide, so I understand we want to make sure that this is equitable to use and, accessible for everybody. So to me, it's easy. I can get a form here and just click and say Nerman, and it's gonna have a timestamp and all that stuff. But I understand that. So I do think if we can add the scan, that would be great, because not everybody is tech savvy. I mean, it's hard to scan something in, but
You
at
just
the
have
same
to
time,
make sure
that's more
to
comfort.
comply with the notary.
Also, it would have to be notarized if it's not e-sign. Right. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I just have one question on 1 year or even 2 year, and we have 2 year, how do we validate that?
So there's different ways we can look at property ownership if it is not a renter. You can look at bills and see if it's addressed to someone at a residence, if they have a past bill, to look at a lease agreement, things like that.
So do we need to bring that in? I don't.
I didn't. I took in an MSC bill, we keep stuff, and I know not everybody does.
If you didn't bring it in, then perhaps they verified via your public record of the purchase of your house.
For my mortgage.
Okay.
And if your current driver's license has your current address and the issue date is more than 2 years in the past, that's pretty easy. If say you renewed your license 6 months ago, so the issue date is new, you could have lived in town for 30 years, but then it gets, a little more complicated. Are we ready to have a vote on this?
Motion to vote on.
Okay, so Ms. Weir, would you call the roll, please?
I'm
You
sorry.
need a second, right?
Yeah.
Do we need a second to take a vote?
Excuse me, is the vote to approve?
Okay, is there a motion to approve ordinance 552? Is there a second? Okay. Ms. Weir, would you call the roll, please?
Council President Souter,
Yes.
Councilperson Joseph Day, Councilperson Nerman Zubaka,
Yes.
Councilperson Andrew Zelt,
Yes.
Councilperson Brian Madaway.
I'm the newest member of the council, and in October 2023, I ran for council and questions were submitted to me. They were submitted to me by Mr. Matt Alexander and Ms. Terry Buchanan. One of the questions, number 7, says, what would you change about the candidate process? In October 2023, I felt and I wrote and I replied the following. I would make the forms available online for printing. I would allow prospects to access the information so consideration can be given without required to physically come into the building. I would maintain the requirements for candidates to go into the building as a filing requirement as proof of residency, et cetera, is needed. I understand the online submissions will provide the most flexibility. However, the city solicitor at the time, Mr. Jeffries, who's on the state court, raised some concerns at the Board of Elections meeting that is online. So that was my context and furtherance of what I thought and felt. And then finally, I said that I would enhance the procedure by mandating that a witness signature and the last day of filing should have expanded window to 7 p.m. I need to be true to that answer, because that's what I said, and that's what I feel, and I think the leadership needs to be present. I will abstain.
Okay, the ordinance is adopted. Thank you. The next item. Okay, we are tabling item 1 under new business, the contract for the citywide ADA sidewalks, because it needs some further engineering review. So we'll be back. It'll be back next month. The next item is the Bull Hill Boat club's lease. Mr. Day. Sure. Thank you.
Hey, most of you know, the Bull Hill Boatyard had a lease for the property, on Bull Hill to operate a nonprofit boatyard, out of the dock there, or out of the, I should say, boat ramp there. The club lapsed for, maybe 5 or 6 years. Recently, we've had some, former members interested in bringing the boatyard back. So we discussed the lease, we had the lease drafted. The boatyard members, even without the lease went down, we had done extensive cleanup on the lot. All the same rules apply, there will be no boat storage there. It's simply a place where they can go and they can put their boats out into the river. Again, it is city property. The lease has not changed significantly. The boatyard will have their own insurance. I did bring a couple items up to Ms. Santillo, the initial lease, there were some concerns about. One of the items was, of course, the boatyard will have their own lease, will have their own insurance, but in the lease, it requires it to be open to all, to the public. So there's a concern, like we'll have insurance, but if a member of the public goes there and gets hurt on their own, should that really fall back on the boatyard's insurance when the city is mandating that it be open to the public anyway? So there was a concern with that. And then the other concern was about having someone be able to let city residents in to launch their boat. The boatyard is just a bunch of volunteers. They don't have somebody on call 24 hours a day, or they may not be able to get somebody there to open it up on a Tuesday morning. And so that is one of the other difficulties in the lease, and I was hoping Ms. Santillo could elaborate a little bit on that tonight.
Yes, so for the insurance requirements and the legality of that, I've sought legal counsel on that. We do recommend that we both have insurance on that in order to provide the best protection for ourselves, stop that someone does get hurt, so that is the best recommendation. And then regarding contacting during business hours, if we can absolutely put information on our website, and maybe post something after the boatyard, to have residents call the city office if they need access, and then provide an after-hours number for the boat club.
And we'll work with that as best as we can, absolutely. But that was just a concern we wanted to bring up front so that we were clear.
Just with me, should this be approved, to finalize the details for the website.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't make notes on that, yeah. So
I wondered about that too.
Yeah. So for Janet Churchill in this lease, it carried over from the old lease. With the contact, we'll give you the name of the new contact. I don't know if it would be the president or the secretary, but it will be, there will be a new contact. I may have misspoken before, but we did renew the 501c3. The boatyard has their 501c3 back with the help of a couple of the members. So there is money for the boatyard that was retained from previously, so we're in good shape.
Okay, so with the provision that the new contact, because Churchill doesn't live there anymore.
That's right.
So I
Yeah.
thought, with the provision that the new contact will be provided, I guess, do we need to take a formal vote? Oh, sure, I'm sorry.
How many members does that boat club have? I'm just curious. I know it's stopped several years ago, but
Well, it stopped several years ago, and back then there was probably anywhere between 40 and 50, and it varied from year to year. And we don't have great records. We have some records to show membership lists. And at this point, we probably have 20 to 30, maybe a little bit more than that. There was a lot of members previously that didn't own boats, as I don't own a boat either. But there were members that wanted to be involved and wanted to help them and really wanted to make sure that it run correctly too. So we do anticipate that we'll have a number of members that don't have boats but still want to be involved.
Okay.
But I would say at this point, if we had 30 members, we'd probably be lucky.
Okay. And sorry for my ignorance, the sailing club provides training if you want to try to, learn how to sail. Is it similar with boat club? Do you provide training and or you provide onboarding for people who either have a boat or don't have a boat, who are your members? Like, is there assurances you put in place? People using the ramp? I don't even know I don't know about, I have no, knowledge of maybe, but is there, insurances you can say, okay, they have passed certain training that allows them to, operate this properly?
We will certainly make sure that everybody that's using it has their boat registered and has whatever you need to captain a boat in Delaware waterways. And training and stuff like that, that may be something the boatyard does at some point. I don't believe they did that in the past. A lot of the things that they had in the past were fundraisers. I believe they had a catfish tournament, and they had some events at the yard, like a crab or something. But it was more for, members that had their own boats that just wanted to be able to get out into the Delaware River.
I don't believe you can put big boats out there because it's
Oh,
kind of silted in,
yeah.
so we're talking about kayak and fast boat and stuff like that. I just,
Boats, dock boats.
yeah, but yeah, nothing like, you wouldn't bring your motorboat in there because it wouldn't go anywhere. It was because it's so silted in right there.
Especially at low tide.
And yeah, at low tide, it's terrible. Yeah, I used to belong to it. We used to have a pig roast out there every year. I don't have a boat and it's just a fun.
I hear it's a lot of maintenance.
It's just a fun place, but we're not talking large boats, sailboats.
Madam President, we do have the president of the boatyard is here, is Warren Flowers, if you wanted to have him come up and talk or say anything or.
Do you have anything you wanted to add, Mr. Flowers?
They pretty much covered everything.
Okay, thank you for being here then. Any other questions or comments?
One question.
Sure.
Thank you, Council President. It seems like a great opportunity to expand ventures on Delaware, which is great. Councilperson Day, do you know if, and thank you for your efforts with this, do you know if there's a desire to construct, a shed or anything similar to like what's at the sailboat area?
No desire at all to build anything new. We may be asking for some approvals in the future to improve the ramp because it's in bad shape, but not building anything, not building any buildings. No sheds, no structures at this point, no intention.
Anything else? Okay, so is there a motion to approve this lease?
I'll make a motion, we approve the lease of the Pool Hill Boatyard.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, the next item is resolution 2024-46, which was tabled last month in the interest of time. This is, Mr. Matterway, would you like to read this for us, please?
Resolution requesting amendment to the City of Newcastle Municipal Charter, authorizing the City of Newcastle to levy and collect a lodging tax no more than 3%, and a wage tax of no more than 1/4%. Whereas the council, the City of Newcastle is vested with all legislative powers of the City of Newcastle, and whereas the City Council is committed to promoting health, safety, and general welfare for the City of Newcastle in perpetuity. And whereas the City Council's ability to meet its obligations and to the City of Newcastle under its municipal charter and Delaware law depends on the presence of stable funding sources for municipal purposes. And whereas the City of Newcastle has been evaluating different mechanisms to raise revenue for municipal purposes. And whereas following a discussion at a duly noted City Council meeting, the City Council has agreed that the following changes to the City of Newcastle municipal charter are prudent to ensure that there remain adequate tools for the City of Council to meet its present and future obligations in promoting health, safety, and general welfare of the City of Newcastle. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Newcastle that Delaware General Assembly is hereby respectfully requested to amend Section 11, municipal power of the municipal charter of the City of Newcastle as amended, adding the text as shown, underlying the following. A B, to impose and collect a lodging tax of no more than 3% of the rent, in addition to the amount imposed by the state for the occupancy of any room or rent or hotel, motel, tourism home as defined under Chapter 61 of the title, which is located within the boundaries of the City of Newcastle. A C, to impose and collect a wage tax of no more than 1/4% of the income of persons who are engaged or employed in any business, profession, or occupation within City of Newcastle for purposes of this section. Income means total income earned. The City of Newcastle. The imposition of the city wage tax should not be imposed on employees of the City of Newcastle, Goodwill Fire Company, or municipal services.
Thank you. So is there discussion? Does anyone have any comments or questions for Mr. Mataway about this?
Yes, I'll start. So is there a projection on what we would collect in a lodging tax? My fear is I don't think we have a lot of units and I don't want to, go through the difficulty of a charter change or something that may cost us more to collect than actually we would collect.
So I'd like to go backwards to go forward, and respond to that in a way that I can. And going back to about October or so, ran for council, I indicated that I would be looking at ways in which to bring the city revenue. And this is one of the things that's been evaluated since I've been on council a little bit over a year. We currently have about 5 or 6 units, if you will, in regards to Terry House or Airbnbs, et cetera. Then councilperson Day, I would say a couple things. In 2018, and I believe this was included, I have some documents for reference that were included in the packet, and some, we have some graphs. But in 2018, the Delaware Assembly passed a law in which the state would get 3%. And then they said municipalities can get 3%. And so since 2018, the state has been getting 3% of every room rented in the City of Newcastle, and the City of Newcastle has been getting 0. Since 2018, Newcastle County has been getting 3% of all rooms rented in the City of Newcastle, and the City of Newcastle has been getting nothing. So that's been going on since 2018 and is current.
Just let me make this clear. So the county wouldn't be getting any revenue from the City of Newcastle. But I think my question is, how much is that 3% per year? How much is that? Are we talking about 5,000? Are we talking about 50,000? I mean, because at some point it makes it not worth collecting. And that's all I'm asking.
So, the laws concerning Airbnbs, forest homes, et cetera, if you will, are evolving. They're evolving around the country. And they're currently evolving in our state of Delaware. And an addendum, to the supporting documents is a law that is going in place in the state, that will be enacted next year, that will require, these types of facilities to report their occupancy. Right now, there is no state reporting requirement. So the state is putting their arms around it, and they will soon be looking to manage it to, if you will, in a similar vein to hotels. In addition to that, the state is saying, hey, we just don't want 3%, we want to take 4.5%. So next year, the state will take 4.5%, whatever it is, for all rooms rented in the state, in the city of Newcastle, and if we do nothing, we will get nothing. Like I said, there is no reporting requirement currently, but an infrastructure is being built in respect to the state so that all accommodations of this ilk will be required to report their occupancy, so then we can therefore track.
Okay, good. I'm sorry to interrupt if you had more questions, but that raises the issue for me. Why are we doing this now? If the state's gonna start requiring these reports next year, then at the end of that year, we will at least have some data as to how many lodging nights we have in Newcastle, which would be subject to this tax, and the handful of B&Bs that we currently have, which would give us some notion of how much revenue we might get from it to compare to the cost of administering the tax. So if we wait.
When you say administering, what do you mean?
Well, we have to collect it, someone in the office has to track it, they have to enforce it, if B&B X doesn't pay their fee, somebody has to, contact them and say you're deficient. It's not free money.
It's built-in infrastructure that's being, that will be done by the state.
This the collection of the data, but in terms of right now, the lodging owners pay the state their tax, right?
No, the payment is paid by the person that stays there.
Well, but it's collected by the owner. I mean, I've been many places where there's a lodging tax tacked onto the bill. I don't write a check to the city that I'm visiting. I pay my bill to the ABC bed and breakfast that I'm staying at. And then they have to remit monthly, quarterly, whatever their municipality requires, the aggregate of the taxes they've collected. And so we would have to do that too. And that's not free. It would take up staff time, and it would take them away from other duties. So all I'm suggesting is perhaps this would be something to consider when we have more information as to how to estimate how much revenue we might receive from it.
So let's be clear on the process. We make a suggestion, if that's the will of council, to request that the General Assembly consider this. The General Assembly will not meet until next year. So if we have a window in time, if we don't take an opportunity to strike now, it will miss, and we will miss another year.
True, but
So actually, this is the time to do it, because their infrastructure is going into place in a month or two.
But how do we do a cost benefit analysis when we have no idea what the benefit is going to be?
Something is better than something of nothing.
But getting the something costs us money. And how much is it gonna cost? And how much are we gonna gain? And what's the balance? That's
Okay.
my question, and we have no way to make that determination right now.
So I do have a presentation here. I would, if will of the council allows me to go through it. Hopefully, when you see it, it provides some obvious answers. and hopefully, you have a better understanding as to why now, et cetera.
We only have 11 to 12 units, by the way, right now, for Airbnb.
So the most important word in the document that would go to the state is the word perpetuity. Anytime we talk about tax here in the city of Newcastle, it must start and end with the number 16. 16 represents the number of years that it's been since the tax rate was increased. So let's go back to 2009, when the last time city council raised tax rates. The closing price of Amazon was $6.85. It's now $197. The Avatar movie was released. Donovan McNabb was the quarterback of the Eagles. Facebook hadn't gone public yet. The Greece financial crisis hadn't taken place. Arab Spring hadn't occurred. Osama bin Laden was still on the run. Governor Ruth Ann Minner had just handed over power to Governor Jack Markell. So that's where we are. City Administrator, could you please go to some of the slides here? So again, looking at 2010, which was the year in which the city council last raised the tax percentage.
2008.
I'm sorry?
2008.
2008, it was changed to,
$1.20, and it was raised in 2008.
so what is it now?
$1.20.
So,
It's been $1.20 since 2008. So it has.
no,
been
that's not
16
accurate.
years.
That's not accurate.
For 16.
Council, city administrator, please look at those. But never the case. Let's look at 2010. In 2010, the budget was $4.61 million.
This is fiscal year, by the way.
Yes,
It
fiscal
was
year.
raised in 2009 for fiscal year.
So it was passed in 08, took effect July 1, 09, probably.
Probably.
So-
Because of the right half of it.
So, right now, the budget, not including grants, is a little bit over $7 million. So in 2010, the police budget was $1.69 million, which represented about 36% of the overall budget. Today, it represents 42.28% and has skyrocketed to almost $3 million. Today, the public works budget is $2.3 million, almost 2.4. It's at 34.07% of the budget. Then, in 2010, it was $1.5 million at 23.21%. So what you have here is astounding. And if we are at these percentages now, where will we go in the future? These two critical departments represent about 76% of our budget currently. When you add in administration, it throws it over 80%, which is not where you want to be. It is not where you can grow. City Administrator, can you please go to the next slide? This here talks about tax revenue. So currently, right now, fiscal current year, $3.1 million is the expectation. In 2010, expectation was just a little bit less, a little bit more than 2.9. Really not that much. But you can see in the previous slide what has gone to our budget, et cetera. Can you please page ahead? Forward, thank you. So additionally, let me read this. since 2017 through current 2025, there has been a little bit over $2.8 million of unrestricted funds that have been carried forward in budgets. So what that means is that $2.8 million has been taken out of reserves to balance a future year budget. We are a business, not a charity. These numbers make us seem like we're a charity that does business. The reality is that the $2.8 million that we've taken out of savings since 2017, when you think about what you could have done with that money to actually do things like road infrastructure. I'm sorry.
I'll wait for my turn.
So that's why. I was hoping that we could look at the two proposals separately. I understand, you know, we're just in it now. But you know, if you could please go forward to the next slide. Yes, so this is in regards to annual wage tax. And there are over 200 businesses that are domiciled within this city that we know of record. The city of Wilmington currently charges 1.25%. This proposal is saying we want 1/5 of that. We just want a portion. For a wage earner that makes $30,000, it would be $75 for the year, about $3 a paycheck, which is a beer special at Portofino. $60,000 would be $150 a year and $6.25 per paycheck, which is a little bit more than an ice cream cone at Jessup's. $75,000 is $187.50 per year. $100,000 is $250 per year. $150,000 is $375 a year, and $200,000. If someone made $200,000 a year, they would only be assessed $500, which is a pot of mussels at dollars. So these are reasonable requests. Can you please page forward? So this is our population, and everyone in council, you have in the packet, it speaks to the population demographics in 2022 that have been recommended and affirmed by city planner Chris Rogers as a reputable source. It's taken from the Census Bureau statistics. So when you look, so there's different age, obviously the demographics of our city. And traditionally, municipalities balance their budgets off the backs of their citizens. What I'm saying, and what the numbers are saying, is that 18% of that is between people between 50 to 59, 18.52% is 60 to 69, 11.95% is 70 and up. Okay, we're sparsing out people 19 years old and under, because if they're working, they're just starting. So if we continue to only tax in a traditional manner, we are taxing people who are at the end of their career or who are retired. I just want to be clear. We have to be different. The city of Wilmington right now, we know Councilman Day brought forward a say no to marijuana here. I agree with that. We don't want to hear. We don't want to hear for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons we don't get any money from it. Wilmington City Council unanimously said, no, we're petitioning the state for a peace. You're not going to put marijuana facilities in our city, take the money and not give us anything. They're swinging. They're taking their shot. Newark, they're trying to be different. They have a bill in Dover right now where they're gonna tax university students $50 per student. These are business moves. And we just have to be different, or we won't survive. We have to try. Our neighbors our neighbors and our constituents are mandating this of us. We have to. I know there's a question around municipalities and who has these types of taxes. There are over 23 million Americans who fall under local income taxes in over 17 states. And this document as of 2011, so I'm sure there's more. Stop, I can continue.
Right. Perhaps we could take some questions, and then if you have additional information in answer to those, how does that sound? Today?
I'm definitely not opposed to looking at different ways to raise revenue. My initial point with the lodging tax is it may cost us $3,000 to collect $2,000. And if Ms. Cantillo, if we get past this, I mean, you have to have some idea, we have to put a system in place, we're gonna have to put an employee in place to collect this, even if it's only partial hours. I mean, did you see this, the collection system being any less than $4,000?
Probably not, but that time and, yeah. And
Enforcement, tracking, some kind of software system.
software, thank you. Yeah, but it's hard to say, but yeah, I wouldn't, that's up for 1,000.
So if we don't collect more than $4,000, this is gonna take our budget in a negative way. That's all I'll say about the initial lodging tax. So with the wage tax, again, I would really be curious to see like how much we would expect to collect.
It would be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay, and how much it would take the city to collect it, how long it would take the city to get employees in place and the system to do this. That's only the city portion of it. So yes, we would have to change our charter, but I believe under the municipalities section of the state code, it clearly says that cities over 50,000 are the only cities that are permitted to do a wage tax. So that would mean we'd have to change state code too, in addition to our charter, which is state code. So it is more than just a charter change as far as I'm concerned with that. Very clear in the municipality section. So I'm not opposed to looking at things. I just want to look at things that I think are viable and we have a plan. How many employees does it take to collect and enforce a wage tax? I have no idea. I've never been involved in that, but I'm guessing it's going to take a couple employees, maybe two internally, maybe a third to go out and meet with businesses. So none of this is simple or easy that somebody's just going to send us a check. And that's what my concern is. Lastly, I'll say, so the county went on record and says that their reassessment will be neutral. It will be fiscally neutral. They don't talk for the municipalities. They're going to have to meet with every municipality to figure out what the tax rate's going to be. So, and at that point, we may have the opportunity to adjust our tax rate, make it fiscally neutral like the county. But that's coming up. And obviously, if you're on social media or if you're on Nextdoor anywhere, like this whole reassessment thing is kind of blowing up. They're having hearings every day. But again, I think this is something that we need to engage the county with and figure out where we are with setting our own tax rate as well. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Zoe, could you comment?
Pretty much in agreement with a lot of the comments from Councilperson Day. As for the wage situation, I know we're trying to hire people in town. There's signs everywhere. I think this is gonna deter people from even coming in now that we have an additional tax. You're trying to compare us to Wilmington. We are a small little town, and we need to take that into consideration. It's gonna cost a lot more to manage this than based upon the income that's gonna be coming in. So we need to take that, analyze it out before trying to pass a resolution to get something added. I need more information to understand how this will all work.
So to be clear on the process, again, it goes to Dover. It works its way through the house and through the various houses. That could take months. It comes back to the city, and this then becomes something that you have on the table that you can then create an infrastructure around. Right now, these revenue sources are on the ground. I'm saying, can we put them on the table to get ready? This, again, this is not gonna be a 2024 event. This might not, it could be a 2025 event, but it's gonna take months to work its way through Dover. Again, our citizens put us here to be inventive and to not just tax them. I am comparing us to Wilmington from the standpoint of Wilmington is swinging their bat and fighting for their residents. And they're saying, we're willing to take a shot. We might fail, but we're willing to go on the record and stand with our residents to say that the math isn't mathing. I'm just saying, can we take a shot? Can we swing?
You're talking about math. Again, I don't see the math on how this is going to benefit us. It seems it's gonna.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars when we've taken 2.9 out of reserves since 2017.
I understand that. We have a tax reassessment that's happening, so we're gonna address that. We've had prior issues with the administration that they.
Poverty is a physical condition and it's also a mental condition. As well as
comprehensive situation, unfortunately, with taxes upcoming because it hasn't been raised in so long, but.
But
this is
you're
not-
taxing elderly people. That's what you have to do. If you stay with the current process, that's what you're doing. 50% of the people are at the end of their working career or retired.
If I'm correct, we have processes in here for taxes for our town that has a reduced amount. So that is already there, if I'm correct.
Right, we have tax abatement process for older people with low income.
No. My message is that your source of revenue is relying upon an elderly population.
Maybe I fall into elderly, I don't know.
Excuse me, when I say elderly, in general, 50% of the population is either toward the end of their working career or retired, generally speaking.
Right, I understand that, and perhaps that's where I fall into since I'm gonna be retiring soon, or I hope to. But I would fully expect, property taxes to be adjusted in this next year. Whether they're up or they're down or whatever this assessment, the way it comes through on, because as you know, we're not being assessed on the full value of what you've been presented with. So we haven't raised, as you pointed out, taxes in 16 years. And if there has to be an adjustment somewhere, okay? So you could go up a little bit in from $1.20 to something else and cover our deficit and perhaps put some back into our reserve. And somebody can double check my math here because I was doing it by hand. We have approximately 12 rental rooms, units, Airbnbs, VRBOs, whatever you wanna call them. There are about 12 of them here in town, depending on if Terry House has 6 or 8 rooms. I'm going with 6, I'll go with the lower number. And if each one of those rented for 100 nights a year at an average cost of $130 a night, which is what some of them do go for, that's $156,000. Someone check my math, that's okay, all right. It's $156,000 total, and 3% of that 156 would be $4,680. So when they're talking about putting in place the processes, is the process going to cost more than the income from it, the revenue from it? Also, I just have a question that I don't know the answer on here. So if it's in the charter, we have to do it. Is that correct? We can't say, oh, it's in the charter and it's sitting there just in case we want to use it in the future. But if it's in the charter, we have to do it. And so I'm looking over at our attorney out of the corner of my eye and she's nodding. So, because I don't know I didn't know the answer. You just can't have it in the charter to be used in 2026. You have to abide what's in the charter now.
That is accurate. What I was saying, the context around that was saying that it doesn't become imminent. It then would have to be something that we would have to pass an ordinance around. Nevertheless, it's amazing that we are acting like we're allergic to money. I have an article here that talks about, Fortune 500 companies and how they've changed their business models. For example, Netflix started out as a rental DVD and CD business. Now they're streaming. What else do we have here? YouTube actually started out as a dating website, and they've pivoted to revamp the website so people can upload literally anything. Lego was started in the Great Depression, and they have expanded their offerings. Innovate or die. How are we innovating? What are we doing differently? Is my question.
Mr. Zvaka, do you have any questions or comments?
I do. I apologize for being on my phone. My kid is 6. I'm just adjusting temperature in our room. I do absolutely have comments. Thank you. Sorry for that. I hear both sides. I understand the concerns about administering lodging tax, especially what is collected. Of course, outweighs the the cost for collecting it. But I'm honestly not familiar with if we take Airbnb or HomeAway or whatever the app that people use nowadays to rent. Would that automatically be something that we have a nanny, we pay through home-based service. They have a finance software in there, and the taxes automatically deducted. They go, she gets paycheck, taxes get deducted. We have to, submit the tax document at the end of the year, but we don't have to do anything with the money. That home-based service does everything for us. So what I'm saying here is I don't know the answer, but I would bet that Airbnbs of the world probably do this for you. Disperse the money to state, county, city, whoever has. Once again, please don't quote me. I'm just using my personal example about nanny. I would think this larger business model has to figure it out as well to disperse this so it's not, and perhaps they charge for it, I'm not sure, but it may be something that we should look into to figure out a cost benefit of that. As it relates to and I think your math is right. I was just calculating more days. I was actually doubling days to 100 days. I'm just married just because when I'm talking to owners of those places, they're telling me I'm booked for the whole year. Now, 365 days, sure, we all know that, but I'm a little skeptic that it's really 365 days, but it's a conversation to have with owners. So that's kind of further study for me to understand the full impact of this. But I do agree with you, Councilperson Mattaway, something of something is better than something of nothing, especially as we're trying, and a lot of these meetings, people are coming, and today included, people are coming and talking about impact of tourists in our town. And this would allow for the impact to be greater, just, coming to town, seeing our businesses, but also city having a marginal revenue source that would help, put tourist pamphlets around town or something like that, promote further our town and things like that. I don't know the revenue amount in front of me. But when it comes to wage tax, I'm a full proponent of this because this is staggering. Thank you. I don't know who else prepared this with you, Councilperson Mattaway, but thank you for putting this together because I suspect it's something similar. And the fact in general of our city finances being funded out of majority one source is troublesome to me as a, currently steward, of 1/5 of the council and your trust that, if something happens to our budget, we have to, use our reserves to cover the difference, right? And property tax is there, property tax transfers are there, but that, you can see how we're getting a volatile definition, that's why it's not in here. We're talking about, fixed, what is anticipated every year. If we're gonna sell a house or not, that's now, we're talking about hypotheticals, we can budget for it. But what would this allow for is a bandwidth to put money back into the reserves, to have a healthy economy where year in, year out, we're not actually using our reserves to balance our budget. But rather, the other way around, we're having that healthy economy of, saying we can invest, because even if you remember in our budget season last year, we had to cut. I don't remember, but probably $1 million worth of services that we want to provide, not because we are having some extraordinary wish list here. It's just that when we think all of our residents, all of the quarters of our town and serve cannot be covered with a current budget and not the stuff that we put in a budget initially. We had to trim it down, which means not everybody's getting, priority number one. We have to kind of, shorten those lists. And that's the real life view in general. But this would help to widen that pool of people being impacted by and seeing, okay, my road is being fixed as well as my neighbor's road, right? Things like that, right? If you can think through that, because I know this is not a clear map right now, because not everybody who has a household here in census showing 2,700 people and about 90, I rounded it to $100,000 median income for the household. My math showed about $670,000 annual income. What this is calling for people working in the city, if I'm correct. So this is just modeled on people living with the kind of income that we have here in front of us that you don't have there. So I just multiplied 2,700, by 0.25% of, $100,000 for each of those households. That's how I derived that number. So we're talking about a significant amount that would help us close that gap. And I understand it's really not ideal timing when it comes to property taxes being, potentially raised for some people, lowered for the others. But at the same time, inflation is real. As one of these charts are showing earlier, you can see that our budget, has exponentially grown. And it is something that we're gonna have to address. And just relying on a property tax, even if we increase the property tax itself, which we probably should, that itself should not be the only way we're closing the gap. Because think about your household budget, right? If there's two working parents and one of them all of a sudden has to stop working, you're only left at one source of income, you're struggling, right? So what we're trying to add here is several more sources of income. So if you have means and you can rent a property that you have potentially invest in a property, then you're diversifying your portfolio as an individual. That's what we're trying to do as a city here too. We're trying to, increase the revenue. And, I'm really glad about the DCF coming earlier, and I had idea for the city as well for several other ways we can hopefully look for streams of money. But this is, I think what we're trying to do here is be really careful about not increasing percentage of tax at one place only, but rather gradually increasing, different streams of revenue so that we are having a healthier economy, so that if 2008 repeats itself economy-wise, we're not hit as hard, right? We're not because a lot of our second highest probably revenue generator currently is a property tax transfers. And sorry, it's late to correct me, you guys know what I'm talking about. But what's gonna happen when the economy is struggling, that amount that we're budgeting is gonna go down, right? So all of a sudden, we're gonna have to borrow even more from our reserves. So what this is trying to, do is kind of help when we're having those years when we're struggling by being able to, have a healthier definition for our budget. This is difficult because it impacts all of us in a room. We're all working here in Newcastle, or majority of us work here, so it impacts us. So of course, it's not something, the last thing you want is more of your paycheck going to the government. But I see this as something that whenever I'm done with council, 2 years or whatever that is, I'm still willing to pay my due to help the economy of the city, so that people sitting here, the vision set earlier is not for current repair of the road, it's to set a fund that would help generations to come, hopefully decisions like I said, we can cut this tax that Councilperson Matter introduced in 2024, because we had vision in 2024, start a fund that's gonna help us over years create revenue that we can kind of like an endowment we can draw upon operational costs, because we were, looking forward. So all these different things are scary all at once, but I think ultimately they are kind of working towards our advantage to make a healthier picture of our budget, I guess. That's kind of, I'm going in circle at this point, I think, but that's kind of what, what I come up with the wage. I guess lodging tax is something I would like to see a little more. I see a lot of stuff here on the wage tax data. I would just like to see a similar kind of analysis for lodging taxes, so I know how many exactly units we have, how many days they rent a year on average, for each unit, how much it is. So we can kind of do a math and say, we would make 5,000, 2,000, 10,000, whatever it is. And also, reach out to providers or other cities doing it and say, this is how much would it cost you for a city, a whole person, or this is automatic and it's just, I don't know. Or if it's automatic, how much is the fee for Airbnbs or whatever services are doing. So that's kind of my approach with lodging. When it comes to this one, I'm more firm and, on the benefits of it kind of as it relates to other parts of the program. Thank you.
Madam President, just one thing. I understand the benefits of this. I would urge Councilman Mataway to table this. I think we need more information. But I also think, for the state code to change from 50,000 to 5,500, this would give the ability of every city, just about every city in the state, the ability to do this wage tax. And the likelihood of that going through the House of Representatives and the Senate is very unlikely, in my opinion. But I think we ought to at least have a conversation about that with the people that will be delivering this for us, if that's even likely.
So I appreciate that. I have had conversations and they said that if you shoot your shot, I'll shoot mine. The people of Newcastle deserve the same protections as the people of Wilmington. They're protected under the same laws, etc. Again, the state passed a law that said no municipality can get money from marijuana. Wilmington is saying, we think we want it and we're gonna try to get it. So they're shooting their shot, they're playing ball. There are about 12 municipalities, at least 12 municipalities in the state that currently charge a lodging tax. Again, I have a couple questions. Administrator Tinto, you wanted to hire somebody, but you couldn't, right? Because we didn't have the money, right? Okay. Mr. Bertram.
Yes, sir.
Our city is about 2 codes behind. Approximately how much money would it cost for us to pay somebody to get up to code? Yes.
We would just have to adopt it, council, and update our code budgets, couple thousand.
Okay. We have a comprehensive plan that's coming up in 5 years. It's probably gonna be 6 figures. We paid 30,000 in 2020, and he left, but Mr. Baldini told me that was a lowball figure because of the budgetary constraints. I'm trying to get to the point to where we can be our own bank. At a certain point, the state is going to constrict, grants are going to constrict. Chief McCabe gets a lot of grants. He's not going to always be able to get all those grants, but he's still going to need those things. So he's then going to say, City of Newcastle, I need your help. I need you to step in. We're looking to try to do some flood mitigation. If we had an extra pot of money, we could do it ourselves or do something.
I think I agree with Mr. Day that we simply don't have enough information to make this decision. There's so many unknowns out there that the issue of the county property reassessment is still pending. We went today and had our informal hearing because we never got the letter with the revised assessment. And I called the county and they said, ask for a hearing and that's where you'll get the information. And he said, we're still working on this. The county can't yet come out with what the full impact of the reassessment is going to be on the municipality until they know what the final assessed values are. And they won't know that until they finish this process. So that's an unknown. You showed that our property tax revenue is pretty stable. Well, of course, it's pretty stable. The tax rate has stayed the same and the properties haven't been reassessed. So there's no surprise there. And as I said about the lodging tax, I think we need a whole lot more information about how much we might expect from this, and the law that the state has passed requiring those reports will provide that information, but not until next year. But then we'll have some data to work with. In terms of the wage tax, it's not just a matter of a charter change, which we would request, and if it was just a charter change, we would request it. The state legislature acts on charter changes in June, and then they would take effect in July. But if we have to get an act of the state legislature to give permission for cities under 55,000 to charge a wage tax, that's a much bigger ask, much bigger ask than asking for a charter change that only impacts Newcastle. And the odds of that, I don't know. But I have one more thing I want to say. You keep talking about business, and businesses do this and businesses do that. Government is not business. Yes, we need to work in a fiscally responsible manner. Of course we do. But our primary purpose is to provide service to our residents, not to make a profit and money to shareholders, which is what businesses are looking at, especially the larger ones. So you said we spend 80% of our budget on police and public works. That's as it should be, because those are the primary services we provide to our residents. What else? I mean, yes, if we had extra money, we could put it in a reserve fund, but the public works budget you cited and its increases includes street repairs. So we've been doing some of those things. Sure, maybe we could do more of them if we had more money, but the goal of a government is not the same as the goal of a business. We're not a money-making operation. We are here to provide services to our residents. And I just don't think we have enough information to go forward with this right now. I'm not saying no, I'm just saying we need more data. We need to know the outcome of the property tax reassessments and how that's going to impact our property taxes here in Newcastle. Would this wage tax apply to residents who also work in the city? So they'd be paying an extra tax that other residents wouldn't pay. How do you think they'd feel about that?
Well, I'm happy to do that.
But I have another question. What about people who work from home? Are they going to be charged a wage tax if their company is based in Philadelphia and they spend 3 days a week working from home and 2 days a week in Philadelphia? Are we going to charge them wage tax for those 3 days a week?
So there are over 4,000 municipalities in this state, in the country, and 23 million people who are subject to income or wage taxes. None of those municipalities that are currently charging the tax are having the conversation that we're having today.
How do you know that?
Because what I'm saying is, with any law, so laws are obviously moment in time, right? We have an ability to repeal laws, to change laws, etc. We can't have straw man type of arguments. I mean, that's the reason why we don't have proper gun legislation in this country, because people say, what if?
I don't think
laws are meant for, for the general census. And what's good, it's looked at for the greater good. There are always things and people that fall through the cracks. I mean, again, the state's gonna get millions of dollars off marijuana. How many people, are they gonna go back and say to people, sorry, we locked you up for marijuana, but now we're gonna turn around and make money for it? No, they're moving forward.
Okay, so.
And if they can move forward with things like that really affect people's lives, why can't we move forward with grace and thoughtfulness on things like this?
Because I don't think we're at the point where we can do it thoughtfully, because we don't have enough information.
I think, so I want to touch a couple of points that Council President mentioned. I do think time is proper to discuss this and point ourselves in a positive, Chair, because here's a scenario, and I have to assume I'm a one-term council person. I think all of us have to assume that until new election and whatever happens after that. So we're all here to make sure that that the taxes collected from the residents are prudently spent. Not only that we're balancing the budget, but also we're making sure that what is it spent for, we spend a lot of thought into that, and you guys see that through our budget process. We definitely spend, a lot of time to, debate on, pros and cons, almost everything that we're paying. So we're not, here in business of making money by any means, but what I will say is that our expenses are going up. Yes, our property tax is predictable. I mean, we probably have a total that we work with, and we hit the percentage out of it, and that's what it is, right? So it's gonna be the same until something changes, either property value or the tax rate. But while we're not business, in a sense, we're a government, we're still competing for same employees. We are hiring code enforcement officer for a year now. We're hiring people that are not willing to come to our city because it's hard to be competitive with businesses. When we go to Indeed, for example, like you mentioned, people that we're competing are businesses. So at some point, we gotta make sure that we're also recruiting talent that's gonna help develop our city and make sure that our residents, are receiving best services. So when I'm saying that we should look for opportunities to generate revenue and diversify our portfolio and hopefully even be able to put money aside, I'm not a genius mentioning that. Look at almost every government in the world. Look at the state of Delaware. Don't even look further. There has been a law that I want to replicate in our city that allows state to prudently save money and prudently spend money. They're always putting money on the side, and in certain circumstances identified in the law, allows them to pull in no more than, I believe, 9% of debt reserves. We don't have things like that in place here. If our budget gets hit on our revenue side, we are pulling all of our money out of reserves, but that is not a good way of spending money, right? So if we are going this path right now that we're on, and every year we're using money from reserves to balance the budget, that money's gonna run out. So whoever is a council person 10 years from now, whenever that happens, if we continue with nothing changing in the meantime, and we're passing a baton, then those people are gonna be struggling to find ways to identify revenues, because it's gonna be too late. It is too late when the reserves are at zero, and we're now facing a deficit, a true deficit. So I think what we're trying to do here, why I support this, is that this is thinking ahead of time to identify a problem that is a real problem, because the last year moving money from reserves, the balanced budget is not the first time we've done that, as Councilperson Mataway identified. So I think that's the biggest driver behind this, because if we're gonna wait for reassessment now going through hearings, then it is even better time to start doing this, because if this takes 2 years to happen, we're not even able to get any increase in property taxes, then we absolutely don't wanna continue down the road with, not being able to, we don't wanna keep going on a road where we have to keep moving money from reserves to balance our budget, because there's not gonna be opportunity besides property tax and this, So that's kind of my opinion on, are we business, are we not business? It's not a business matter, it's about, in order to provide these services, we need revenue, right? So like, if you add something legislation, we're adding a lodging thing, where Councilperson Day justifiably so is asking how much it's gonna cost us. That's the great way of thinking. That's why we're here in these seats. Because if we're gonna collect 1,000, but it's, we spend 1,000 to do it, probably not worth doing, right? Or even worse, if we lose money. So those are that's why we're in these seats. So that's what I'm saying, like, this is one of those forward-thinking things that we are currently running on a system that I don't know if it's necessarily fiscally sound. If I'm having a household budget and every year I have to pull in the savings to make ends meet, eventually the pot from savings is gonna run out. And then what? How am I gonna pay bills in year 5? That is what I'm trying to depict here, I guess.
Okay, Mr. Day, I think you had a comment.
We all understand that we need new avenues of revenue. My problem, as I said from the beginning with this, if the data isn't there, I hear somebody say, oh, it's gonna be hundreds of thousands in wage tax. Well, is it 100? Is it 300? Is it 450? And then let's put the system in place. If we're gonna hire employees Like, what's the rate of the employees that we're gonna pay? Are we gonna have $150,000 worth of employees? How about the system? How about the software, the enforcement? I mean, if we're gonna do this, let's do it right, get some projections. Because again, even if it did get through the charter, at that point, it isn't, oh, you can do it when you want, it's you're going to do it. And then if we're going to do it and we don't have, how do you know that this rate is right? I mean, where did the rate come from if we don't know how much it's gonna cost us? There's not enough information, and I will again urge you to table this until we get some real data.
And I have another question. Is it even legal to request a charter change for a wage tax that is not currently permissible under Delaware code? Doesn't the code have to be changed first before the legislature would even consider changing our charter to permit us to establish a wage tax? So I agree, we need a lot more information and.
So I think we all love our city. And I really want to work with you. Hopefully you will see my energy and passion as true love and are hopefully not offended by it. I just want to take our city forward. I really do. I understand you have some questions. Some of the questions, may not be able to be answered until a year from now. But a year from now in regards to, so for example, when we were at one of the budget meetings, we had a gentleman came up from the tree commission. And he was passionate about how he needs more money. And we were piecing and parceling and we were saying like, okay, well, we'll give you an extra 5,000, we'll give you an extra 10,000. The city, we just invested, $30,000 or maybe more into a tourism director. There's nothing wrong with wanting to get something back. So again, if I can maybe get some of the questions that you all have surrounding this, I'll try to research it as well as I can. But please understand that sometimes you don't have all the answers. You just got to do the best with what you have.
Right. We may not have all the answers, but I think we need more answers than we have right now. That's my opinion. So.
I'll table it because I see the handwriting on the wall. I'll table
So
it.
do we need is there a motion to table this resolution? Mr. Mataway's made it. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the resolution is tabled. Oh, okay, we'll have to wait till Mr. East Broccoli.
Get a majority.
Got a majority. Okay, all in favor of tabling this resolution? Aye. It's tabled. All right, now we have some easier things. Resolution 24-47, to appoint Gail Sykes reappoint Gail Sykes to the Sea Level Task Force. I would read the resolution. Resolution to reappoint Gail Sykes to the Flood Resiliency Committee. Whereas the Newcastle City Council established the Sea Level Rise Task Force by Resolution 2022-04, and whereas Resolution 2023-32 converted that task force to a permanent committee known as the Flood Resiliency Committee. And whereas Ms. Sykes currently serves on this committee in a term which expires December 31st, 2024, she has agreed to be reappointed. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council hereby reappoints the following person to the Flood Resiliency Committee. Gail Sykes, Flood Resiliency Committee, term ending December 31st, 2027. Is there any questions or discussions on this resolution?
Motion to approve.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and the next one is another appointment.
Can I vote additionally for appointment if this is appointment?
For Gail Sykes.
I want to now vote in house.
Okay, resolution 2024-48. The resolution to reappoint Alice Reel to the Tree Advisory Commission. Whereas the Newcastle City Council passed ordinance 500 to amend and restate chapter 74 relating to the tree commission and chapter 210 of the Code of the City of Newcastle relating to street trees, creating the Tree Advisory Commission. And whereas pursuant to section 74-1 of the code, the Tree Advisory Commission shall consist of 5 members, each serving a 3-year term. 2 members shall be appointed by the mayor of Newcastle and confirmed by the city council, and 3 shall be appointed by the city council. And whereas members of the Tree Advisory Commission may serve up to 2 terms, and whereas members shall be selected on the basis of education, experience, or demonstrated interest in related fields, members need not be city residents. And whereas Ms. Reel has served 1 term on the Tree Advisory Commission and is willing to be reappointed. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council hereby approves the mayor's reappointment of the following person to serve on the Tree Advisory Commission to a term which expires November 13th, 2027. Alice Reel, Tree Advisory Commission, term expires November 13th, 2027. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve resolution.
Second? Second. All in favor? All right, thank you. Okay. And then, okay. Resolution 2024-49. This is the resolution improving an encroachment at 105 The Strand. We have some maps in our packet. They're a little hard to read. I don't know, because it's so small.
Mr. Bergstrom and I can talk about this.
Should I read it first and then we'll have the discussion?
Thank you.
Whereas Kathleen Curran and Patrick L. Pennell, the applicant, have applied to the mayor and council for a building permit to construct a new dwelling at 105 The Strand, also known as tax parcel 21-015.00-173. And whereas the Historic Area Commission has approved the drawings for the proposed dwelling, and the front steps of the proposed structure will encroach on the right-of-way of the Strand a depth of 6 feet, plus or minus, along a portion of the building as shown on the attached exhibit. And whereas the applicant has agreed to waive any damages for the use of the right-of-way by mayor and council, and prior to the issuance of a building permit shall execute an indemnification agreement. Now therefore be it resolved that the new dwelling at 105 The Strand, also known as tax parcel 21-015.00-173, and applied for by Kathleen Curran and Patrick L. Pennell, will be approved to construct a new dwelling with an encroachment on the public right-of-way, and provides the building official to authorize the issuance of a permit for construction of the front steps on the public right-of-way and issuance of a letter indicating the city's lack of objection to the structure being built on the public right-of-way. So you and Ms. Bergstrom have some comments. My primary question, and you may know the answer to this, is once the steps are out there, they're 6 feet, how much sidewalk is left in front of them?
Yeah, there's sufficient sidewalk.
More than that.
Yeah, more than 6 feet? I mean, I know there's other houses in that stretch that already have steps encroaching on the sidewalk.
Yes.
That's what we're gonna say.
So,
This is a common practice, that has been done in the past. It has, gone through the same process for other. new
Right.
construction in the area and other ones for our historical, which I have with person. And then the indemnification agreement would, which Mr. Canal and Ms. Grant signed, would allow for if they need a road for the select road or to have the encroachment removed, that would.
yeah, I mean, my memory from the last time I was over there is that most of the houses, the steps encroach on the sidewalk.
Well, I
Most
think
of the
in fact, we
buildings,
want the building fronts to be along the same plane, right? So-
Right.
approximately, this is what Hack thinks looks right.
I'm assuming most of these, check marks have been checked because it's already been through HEC and their recommendation is, to approve this. My several questions are, what is the length or depth of the stairs on the other houses? This same comparable?
Comparable.
And the only other question was, I see that the architect is the tenant too, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that the applicant as well? All right. So can somebody show me, is this the side view that we have here? of the stairs, is that what basically would be built? I'm trying to figure out where it's in front of the house.
Right above you, right there.
behind you. That's, yeah, okay, I see. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's similar depth as every other house on the block, so
Yeah, they all pretty much line up.
I'm in full support of it. Of course, people should have, exit on the street. I'm just curious why they didn't have it already. I mean, I don't know what's the.
It goes to new build. It's a new construction. It hasn't even started
Oh,
yet.
okay, okay. I thought it was just a stair.
No,
Okay, okay. Never
it's in
mind.
brand new house.
All right.
Any other questions or comments from council?
Vote to approve resolution 2024-49. Second.
All in favor? Okay, and let's see, we've already covered item 7, so the last item is the, vote regarding the city awards for employees, citizens, and business awards for exemplary services, leadership, and civic engagement. Ms. Cantia, I believe you have something for us on this?
Yes, so I have taken nominations, once council, you've directed your nominations only to me. There were enough, for the, former resolution, creating this award, the number of nominations for, citizen and business, that the, number of awards available for the year, and the number of employees, of employee awards available for the year is 2. We have received 4 nominations. So would like to authorize all 4 nominations for the year. That would be helpful.
I'll make a motion to authorize 4 nominations for the employee of the year award.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So at the next meeting, we will announce those winners.
Okay. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting stands adjourned.
John Max, he's at there.
Do you want-